Hi, a very good morning. Welcome to the HOTS Assessment Webinar Series. And for today, it's the second talk of this seminar series. And I believe that as educators, and especially in this online environment and in this pandemic era, assessment is one of the greatest challenges if we are going to conduct it online. And I believe that HOTS assessment is one way to address this. Therefore, the Office of the Timbalan Dekan Sains Kesehatan and also the Academic Development Unit under the TD's office is organizing this HOTS assessment seminar as a refreshers to us as educators in how to create HOTS assessment and the way forward in conducting online assessments. Therefore, it gives me great pleasure, and we are actually very blessed to have our eminent speaker here, Dr. Tusley, right, to share on the to share his insights in creating HOTS assessment and the way forward of conducting it in an online assessment. So before I proceed in transferring the session to Dr. Tusley, I would just like to give you a brief introduction of Dr. Tusley here. Okay, basically, Dr. Tusley is currently an associate professor at UNIMAP, University Malaysia Police, since the beginning of this year. And before that, he was a former associate professor at University Technology Petronas, UTP, for which he had served the institution for the past 17 years. And he graduated his PhD in chemical engineering from the Imperial College, funded by the Commonwealth Scholarship in 2014. He was then appointed as the director of the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, CITAL, at UTP, championing student-centered learning pedagogy initiative at the institution from 2014 onwards. He was then appointed as one of the National Education Policy Reform Task Force members from October 2018 till April 2019, serving the former Education Minister. In 2019, he was also seconded to the Perak ICT and Multimedia GLC Digital Perak as the Chief Executive Officer. So yes, he is a man of many roles and responsibility. Now, as the associate professor, he is passionate in doing research related to nurturing values and deep learning in engineering education via different student-centered learning approaches. He has also deep interest in doing research in catalytic reaction engineering, biomass development, and the production of biofuel and biochemical. Another interesting area that is very close to his heart is essential oils, because he believes in using essential oils. It can help to promote general physical and emotional wellness, especially to him as the educator, with the life motto of empowering teamwork skill, enriching creativity, instilling values, and inspiring people everywhere. Please give your warmest welcome to Dr. Tusley.
Thank you very much to Dr. Manraj. Thank you for the introduction. How are you, Dr. Manraj?
I am very fine, thank you. Yes, and also to the participants, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask yourself. If you're shy, the chat box is always there to assist you. So yes, I'm very good, Dr. Tusley. I hope you are too.
Sure. All right. Okay. So shall I start now? Is it okay?
Yes, the floor is all yours. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Right. So let me share the screen first. I hope you can see this. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Right. So, hello everyone. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I believe that most of the participants here are local, so I I I hope that sometimes I can mix up with Malay as well. Sometimes dia punya explanation in Malay tu kadang-kadang lagi boleh faham. But I will try my best. Actually, that to this is it's gonna be about 4 hours, but don't worry that it's not going to be a straight 4 hours. There'll be sometimes some breakout activities. You'll be doing some kind of team activities, and then we'll have some break. If you need toilet break whatsoever, that we'll be able to do that. Okay, inshallah. Alright. So for today's session, that I'll be sharing about strategies for preparing HOTS assessment. Okay. For HOT assessment, the learning outcome for today's session is to understand HOTS and the guiding principles in creating HOTS assessments. First thing first is, before we be able to create HOTS assessment, we need to understand first what are HOTS. What are the hot thinking skills? Okay. And then the second one is we should be able to explain step-by-step guidance to prepare HOTS assessment. So there are certain steps you have to follow. Why in the previous we try to prepare some HOTS assessment, it doesn't work well with the student. Why things are not going into the right direction. For example, perhaps by you listening and having some thoughts about some step-by-step to prepare HOT assessment, this would help. Okay. The third one, I'll be sharing a bit on flip assessment. What does it mean by flip assessment? It is kind of innovation that I have made with my team for the past, I think, 5 years. We've been practicing this, and it was a good one for the students. The fourth one is actually to demonstrate HOTS assessment creation in a team. Okay? So we want to make sure that you'll be able to develop some kind of HOT assessment. So you be part in the team, and then you try to develop those HOT assessments. Okay. So as the outline, today there'll be some section which is we're going to talk about what is HOTS from the perspective of Bloom taxonomy as well as Solo taxonomy. Second one is we're going to talk about some guiding principles. Of course, there are plenty out there, but I just choose several guiding principles that we can use. And if we stick to this, then inshallah, hopefully then it will work well for either our instructional design or towards our assessment. Then perhaps it will help. Okay. The third one is actually the step-by-step to prepare HOTS assessment. And the fourth one is making your students a teacher via flip assessment, developing yourself, becoming an empathetic educator, as well as question and answer. I would like to bring you first thing first. Can you actually, everybody, take out your mobile, or perhaps using different browser as well, or just open another tab. Okay. Try to actually go to Mentimeter. I would like you to go to www.menti.com and use this particular code 6826734. 6826734. And I would like you to actually reflect back on your experience as a student as well as a lecturer. For example, have you given or taken open-ended assessments or tests or exams before? Okay, have you given or taken open-ended assessments or tests or exams before? You can answer more than one, which means that you can answer as a student, you can also answer as a lecturer, as an educator. So please go to www.menti.com and use this particular code 6826734 and respond to this. Okay, we used to be students before, right? So we just want to reflect our experience in the past, to what extent that actually that our experience shape ourselves as well. So that's why I believe that if let's say if we never been tested in the past about open-ended and all those kind of things, it will be a bit difficult for us to adjust ourselves when we become a lecturer, right? So I just wanted to see right now what kind of experience that we have in the past, and how do we adjust ourselves to the current situation. So what I can see right now from 17 responses that I have, only one that had said that had never been tested open-ended when I was a student. Okay, I would say that I fall into that category as well when I was doing my degree last time, because there is no, for example, like when I was in UK, there's just only final exam. There is no coursework, there is no quiz, or there is no test in between. It's just final exam, 100% final exam, and it is closed book final exam. The only time that I was exposed to doing this open-ended things is when we have to do the design project, group design project. That's all. But other than that, most of the time it is actually open, close-ended. Okay, so I would actually fall in the same category with one of our friend here. And I think many of you said that as a student, you had done 1 to 2 open-ended assessments before as a student. Quite plenty of you as well mentioning that you had done many open-ended assessments before as a student. So I think it shouldn't be that much problem for you, because you have experience in the past about what does open-ended assessment look like and how you're going to adjust yourself as an educator. So from here, there are actually some of us that had never give open-ended assessments to our students, because the answer is very rigid. That is the solid answer. You have to answer like that. So that is actually the concept of close-ended, right? Many of us as well had been given sometimes open-ended assessments, so that we, most of the time we test our students so that they can explore more. And good thing that we have also 4 of us here that we've been doing most of the time open-ended assessment. So this is some kind of statistics that I have. And I could say that based on my experience conducting this webinar in the past, we had this similar trend where actually most of the time we had done 1 or 2 open-ended assessment. We have never given open-ended assessment too much for our students. Even if, let's say, we give to the students, we tend to give like, okay, this is going to be a group work instead of like individual work to solve open-ended assessment. So this is similar pattern that I can observe most of the time during the webinar session. So first thing first, we need to know what is actually HOTS. So what are HOTS? Okay, so HOTS is actually, if we always refer to the Bloom Taxonomy, then we know that what is HOTS, kan? Kita dah pernah expose dengan Bloom Taxonomy before. We actually, whenever that we creating our course outcome, okay, our learning outcome, course learning outcome, whenever that actually we wanted to develop assessment questions, for example, final exam question, we always use what we call as HOTS punya Bloom Taxonomy punya verbs, okay? And we define that, okay, kalau kita kata we define that at the higher institution, we always define that analyze, evaluate and create level 4 until level 6 is considered as HOTS, high order thinking skills. And level 1 until level 3 is considered as low order thinking skills. At the same time, kalau dengan at the school level, they define that level 3 until level 6 is considered as HOTS. Okay, level 1 and level 2 is considered as LOTS, low order thinking skill, kemahiran berfikir aras rendah, kebar and kebat. Okay, the most important part actually when we are dealing with this HOTS, okay, it is not only just simply use the guide word ataupun the verb itself. For example, like when we develop our course outcome, okay, students will be able to evaluate the effectiveness of blah 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 blah. So that will be our course learning outcome. When we use that particular evaluate ataupun when we use the guide word that is actually highlighted in this area, it does not mean that straight away that our learning outcome is considered as high order thinking skill if it not being reflected in the activities as well as the assessment. Okay, what we always feel, what it is not just simply use that particular guide word to say that okay, this is my I'm using this particular guide word and it is simply this is high order thinking skills punya activity. Not necessarily. In order for us to bring the student towards the HOTS level, okay, we have to make sure that the students had to go through all the level daripada low order thinking skill sampailah ke level that we intend to have. So for example, if let's say we want the students to be able to analyze and draw connections or analyze some kind of data and make comparison of that particular data, before that students be able to go towards that particular activities which is to analyze something, okay, dia kena melalui dulu the process of remembering, okay, recalling, where do I get this particular theories or fundamentals about this before, and understand about that first. Lepas tu dia dah dapat apply that particular knowledge in order for them, before them to be able to make that kind of analysis. Okay, jadi dia tak melompat terus. Okay, he doesn't jump straight away to do the analysis, but they have to go through all this thinking process barulah dia sampai ke level of analysis. So whenever that we develop assessment, okay, using certain guide words such as analyze, evaluate or create something, okay, then we have to ensure that dia punya level tu, all the thinking levels tu are going through. Katalah tiba-tiba kalau kita evaluate, the thinking level tu tak sampai pun pada create, so which means that our guide word is not correct. Maybe instead of create, mungkin it just only apply, for example. Okay, so that is actually a bit basic about what is high order thinking skills is all about. Okay, it's not necessarily that kita tak boleh jump. We cannot make our student jump straight away to the HOTS punya proses tanpa melalui low order thinking skills tu dalam aktiviti yang kita bagi pada student. As simple as actually contohnya lah, if let's say I give a task of the student, for example like if I referring back to my engineering punya background program, okay, student should be able to design some kind of prototype. Okay, students should be able to design a prototype related to certain subject lah. Okay, prototype design for that. Tapi kalau dalam kelas, for example, in our class, we consistently give the same kind of task to the students. Okay, kita bagi task. Okay, hari ni, minggu ni, you're going to design this. Okay, which is, and then next week, you're going to design similar thing as well. The other seminggu satu lagi pun kita bagi task yang sama. So student had been consistently doing similar things. And in the final exam, for example, we use also the keyword design. So student, please design this. So student tu, they had been doing the same thing over and over again. Okay? What comes into their mind, does it actually, when you give that final assessment towards the end tu, adakah berlaku proses evaluation? Kita bawa ke bawah. Adakah berlaku proses analysis? No, doesn't happen that way. Adakah berlaku proses apply? Kalau dia twist sikit, that particular design maybe apply. Jadi, ada kemungkinan that particular guide verb maybe only bring to the student of level of understanding sahaja, ataupun just recalling back whatever the procedure that they have gone through in the past, repeat the same thing and just apply in their final assessment. So that does not bring the students towards high order thinking skill, even though we use the particular guide verb of create or evaluate and so on. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, so again, we just use these particular verbs as a guidance for us. Tapi most of the time, whenever that we develop high order thinking skills activities or assessments, we have to make sure that this all of this thinking process, it happen at once. Okay, it happens all together at once. Tapi katalah ada setengah thinking process tu tak berlaku, terberhenti, maksudnya the guide verb is not at high order thinking skills, but maybe is a bit lower. Alright. Most of the time, perasan tak kalau kita jumpa student kita in the past lah, even until right now pun sometimes the students are asking and come to you. For example, students ambil test. Bila dia ambil test, dia cakap, dia komen dekat kawan-kawan dia, dia kata, I think the lecturer didn't teach this at all. You know, it's difficult. I think the lecturer didn't teach this at all. That is the first one. Second one, how I can easily remember this, for example. So, because he always talk about remembering. And if let's say they have a lot of memorization, ataupun they come to you and sir, will this be in the exam? Okay, that kind of question. Or is this counted for the coursework mark? And they become very exam oriented. So these people are actually considered what we call as surface learner. Okay, surface learner ni, dia ada dua, dia according to Paris Intellectual Development Model, they have 4 stages of developing learners. Okay, starting from the category of surface learner until deep learner. So kalau surface learner ni, they will come to you, sir, please teach me this and let me know what is the important thing sahaja. I only want to know about that. Other than that, I'm not interested. So that is considered a surface learner. Okay, very shallow. Ataupun they come to a second stage where actually, okay, you are true. Ataupun okay, awak cakap betul, awak pun cakap betul. Macam itulah. Ataupun okay, both of you give a wrong reason. Saya ambil simple simple example lah. Okay, the anti-vaccine, anti-vaxxers. Okay, those people are considered as a surface learners. Kenapa? Sebab because they have been only they might actually read in terms of the information that they try to gather, they not be able to analyze or give weightage to each of this information accordingly. Jadi dia akan tengok information yang dia dapat daripada sini is the same like information yang dia dapat daripada the other side. And lepas tu dia buat judgement yang shallow. Okay? So that is why actually these people will end up become surface learner. So if we really want, so the idea kenapa, for example like my jihad ni, sebenarnya kenapa that I want to make sure that our students becoming deep learners, because that we want to avoid this kind of thing in the future. Okay, we want our students, we want to our future to be able to make sure that they be thorough in making analysis, be thorough in making the judgment, and know what kind of weightage that they have to know to decide. Okay, they know how to put the weightage in order for them to make decision. So these are the characteristics that we need in order for us to develop deep learners. So the deep learners themselves, okay, kalau kita tengok kategori yang ketiga is what we call as relativism. They see the existence of disciplinary reasoning through criteria or argument. Students may appear successful. Okay, which means that they start to see that, okay, this is the weightage that I could give and I can make analysis from here. And finally, the higher level of deep learner is commitment. Students realize they must make choices and commit to solutions, okay, and understand context for particular choices. In this particular area, whenever that the students become a deep learner, because they will be able to make certain kind of decision and they really support the decision made to by actually looking from all the information yang dia dah gather. Okay, most of the time we will see that okay, those who are doing PhD supposedly be able to become a deep learner in their topics, but we shouldn't wait until a student do a PhD or a master barulah dia develop surface learner. We can start doing that when actually they are even actually at school ataupun dekat university lagi, degree lagi. We should be able to nurture our students to develop themselves become a deep learner. Oh, yang dia tak keluar. I need to refresh a bit. Diagram tak keluar. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Boleh tanya je soalan. Put in the chat section. I
Dr.
will try
Tusley,
my best.
tak ada soalan ya.
Okay, no problem. Okay, kat sini. Alright. Another taxonomy that I would like to share with you is what we call as solo taxonomy. Selalu kita dengar pasal Bloom taxonomy. I know that some of you have heard about Bloom taxonomy all the time. Most of the time, I think we actually been very familiar lah dengan Bloom taxonomy and revise Bloom taxonomy kan. But another thing that we have to bear in mind is actually what we call as solo taxonomy. Solo taxonomy ni is actually what we call as structure of observed learning outcome. Okay. Apa yang best tentang solo taxonomy ni? Okay. Apa yang menarik tentang solo taxonomy ni ialah they actually have a different level and classifying the students, not classifying lah, maksudnya developing the students to become a deep learner. Okay. So they have 5 level. The first one is what we call as pre-structural level. So pre-structural level punya student, kalau based on our observation, when we ask certain questions to them, they will just say that I'm not sure about this subject. Okay, for example, like if I myself I'm teaching thermodynamics and I ask my student, what is thermodynamic? Ini jawapannya, I'm not sure. I do not know. So that is considered as pre-structural level. Okay, unistructural level pula ialah they have only one idea about the subject. Okay, contohnya kalau kita ada soalan, what is a cow? Lembu tu apa? Okay, and then dia punya jawapan ialah a cow when it is milking. Maksudnya bila dia bagi susu, and itulah lembu. Tapi actually kambing pun bagi susu, kucing pun ada susu, kan? So that is unistructural level, which means that they have only one idea on it. If let's say another students, they have this what we call as multi-structural level. I have several ideas about this subject. Okay, so for example, like when again the question is what is a cow? Okay, a cow when it is alive, it gives us milk. When we slaughtered them, it gives us fat, it gives us meat, and the skin can be used for for the leather-based product, for example. So that is still considered as surface understanding. Okay, because dia punya ability is just to be able to classify, divide, and classify. Okay, so that is multi-structural level yang ketiga. Okay, and then the fourth level is what we call as relational level. Relational level ni, if let's say we again, if you ask the question about what is a cow, okay, dia akan jawab cow is blah 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 blah. A cow ni ada different species. Okay, there are few types of cow. One is Angus and one is Jersey cow. And then the Jersey cow ni relatively size dia agak besar, tapi contohnya dia bagi susu sikit. Tapi Angus cow ni size dia macam kecil tapi dia bagi susu yang banyak. So they start to be able to make some kind of relational level within that particular topic. Okay, dia dah dapat buat some kind of comparison. I can link my ideas together to see the big picture as a whole within that particular topic. So that is what we call as relational level. So for example, like if we teach something, the students, some things in the past week, and then this week, bila dapat some new knowledge, he or she be able to relate that particular knowledge with the past information that they had from the within the same topic. Okay, that is what we call as relational level. So when the students start to reach this relational level, this is where actually the students achieve what we call as deep understanding. But the best one is actually be able to be at the extended abstract level. Kalau dia tanya, mungkin saya boleh tanya, if let's say kita tanya soalan yang sama, what is a cow, kepada this particular student who is actually at the extended abstract level, agak-agak apa respon dia? Boleh tak komen dekat chat? Agak-agak je lah. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. Doesn't have to be... Okay? It is open-ended. This is an open-ended question. Agak-agak apa? What kind of answer that is could possibly be if let's say that student achieving at the extended abstract level? Ada siapa-siapa yang boleh jawab tak? A cow comes from cloning. Okay, that's good, bro. Any more question? Any more thoughts about this? What would be the answer from the student who are actually at the extended abstract level ni? Other than Prof. Dr. Chia, anybody else have any answer? Any thought about it? Herbivorous animal. Okay. Improving the cow characteristic with genetic engineering. Possibility of outcome of the genetic mixture of those cow. Okay. This is a very orang kata apa? High level punya thoughts ni kan. Kalau saya baca pun apa benda ni kan. But that's good. Alright. Those are the things that okay, whenever that we give this kind of thoughts kepada student yang reach the extended abstract level ni, the students whenever that they, for example, what is a cow, they started to relate cow with other things. Okay, for example, like a cow is blah 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 blah. Lepas tu dia buat relationship. Okay, I can see that the DNA of the cow is almost the same like the human, because it can be classified in terms of different skin color, different size, different knee, and the same thing with the human, for example. So they started to go beyond the context of what we've been teaching them. So for example, like the student, whenever they started to be able to relate with other topics or other subjects or other things that they have learned or future things that they have come across to, ataupun something yang kita tak pernah ajar tapi dia boleh relate to it, that is what we call as at the extended abstract level. So these are the students that we want to produce actually. Okay? So for example, like if let's say, dan selalunya you have to agree with me that actually most of the time we'll be able to get this when we are doing PhD, right? Because we need to do cross citation, cross referencing, and then try to compare our output with other things. This is why actually at the extended abstract level. But again, it doesn't have to wait until we do masters or PhD in order for us to get this. This could be brought inside the class, into our class, so that the students having a discourse, so they'll be able to talk about it. They'll be able to relate on certain things that is not being covered within our context. Okay, and we do really want to bring our student to this deep understanding level, be it at the relational level ataupun at the extended abstract level. We really want to bring our students towards that direction. Hence, that is the reason why we need to develop high order thinking skills. And high order thinking skills had to be developed not only in our assessment as well as in our instruction as well. Okay, so this brings us to the guiding principles. So the guiding principles that I would like to share with you is actually how does kita be able to develop HOTS thinking in our students, okay, HOTS thinking in our students, um, and whenever that they're doing the assessments without having to feel um, that it's a bit macam dia tough, memang it is tough, tapi it is becoming a second nature to them. Those are the things that we want. We want to make sure that whenever we give some kind of hot assessment to the students, it become a second nature to them. Okay. So these are some kind of principles that I would like to share with you, so that you be able to make sense of it, and then perhaps we can try in our class and in our assessment. So the first principle that I would like to bring you is what we call as constructive alignment. And I think that we at the higher education has been exposed to this constructive alignment for quite some time, especially in preparing the MQA document. I think there's a lot of constructive alignment punya verbs, keywords coming in. Okay. So the constructive alignment ni, dia ada 3 main elements. The first one is the learning outcomes. The second one is the teaching and learning activities, and the third one is the assessment. So what happens is that whenever that we develop our course outcome, kita mesti ada some intention. Okay, we have some intention for the student to achieve. This is where actually the OBE comes in, outcome based education, because outcome based education ni is we actually first we aspire what are the things that the students should be bila dia dah graduate ataupun bila dia dah habis certain course, bila dah habis program, what are the things that they should be able to do. So daripada when they be able to do, barulah kita start to think about, okay, what kind of curriculum that I should develop, what kind of assessment that I should develop to make sure that my student achieve my outcome. Okay, that is actually the initial, the real intention of what is OBE is all about, outcome based education. OBE ni is being supported by what we call as constructive alignment. Okay, and constructive alignment ni, as I said earlier, there are the 3 main elements. Most of the time in the past, we always think about OBE ni is only about documentation, when actually our documentation is just part of it. The most important part is the gist behind it. Okay, so now let me explain a little bit about why does we use constructive alignment to make sure that our students be able to achieve what we want for them. Okay, so as the first element is what we call as learning outcome. Okay, learning outcome, intended outcome must be clearly indicated. That is the first thing. So if let's say we want our students to be able to acquire certain things, okay, when actually they complete the program or they complete the courses, they complete the module, so we have to clear that in our documentation. Okay, that is the first one. But at the same time, okay, whenever that we do this learning outcome, of course we want to assess that. So we want to assess the intended outcome. Okay, and for that we have to make sure that the teaching and learning activities are well aligned with our learning outcome as well with the assessment. Contohnya macam ni. Kalaulah in our learning outcome, we want our student to achieve KBAT, we want our student to achieve HOTS, high order thinking skill. And in the assessment, we give our students high order thinking skill question. Tapi in our teaching and learning activities, it is entirely just a lecture. Okay, it's just entirely a lecture. There is no discussion, there is no team activities, there is no engagement. Okay, there is no scaffolding, there is no facilitation. So our students are not be able to do the assessment. Jadi bila towards the end, bila kita vet question, kita kata I dah bagi soalan yang HOTS according to the learning outcome, tapi the students are not be able to attempt it. Maksudnya student tak boleh nak jawab pun soalan ni. Jadi I want to go back to do close-ended assessment. Okay, so this is somehow our failure is actually kita tak emphasize on the teaching and learning activities. But I know that medical education is quite advanced. When you have all this problem-based learning, all those kind of things, that is very, very good, because this is where actually we'll be able to develop the high order thinking skills among the students. So those are the things that we do as part of the teaching and learning activities, and only then we can fairly assess them. Apa yang berlaku selalunya in many other courses, for example, even most of the time dalam engineering ni lah, kita memang bagi learning outcome kita memang high level, high order thinking skills punya level. And then kita bagi assessment, kita gunalah all these guide verb yang macam contoh evaluate, compare, create, buat something, all those kind of thing. Tapi in our teaching and learning activities is just entirely lecture. Okay, there is no engagement, there is no opportunity for the students to develop, to be scaffolded, so that they'll be able to attempt the assessment. So we have to make sure all of these three elements are aligned to each other. Only then we'll be able to develop HOTS in our student. That is the first guiding principle. The second guiding principle is what we call as how people learn, HPL framework. Okay, HPL framework ni, it was actually developed by J.D. Bransford in year 2000. He studied about more than 1,000 research work on the effectiveness of learning daripada early childhood sampailah ke adult. So all these people reporting about the, what do you call that, all the outcomes untuk engage with the learners. So he came to the conclusion that, okay, in order for him to develop this, to make sure that people learn, okay, they must fulfill this particular four framework. The first thing first is actually what we call as knowledge centered. Okay, four lenses, dia panggil four lenses. The first one is what we call as knowledge centered. What is actually knowledge centered? Knowledge centered ni is whenever that we teach something for the students, the knowledge outcomes organized around fundamentals of a discipline. What it's meant here is the students, whenever that we want to teach the students some new knowledge, benda yang baru diajar, kita nak ajar benda baru, we have to relate that particular new knowledge with some old information that the student had already acquired in the past. And at the same time, we have to relate that new knowledge to with the future application of that knowledge. So bila kita dapat susun this particular process, whenever that we try to give this particular new knowledge, try to relate dengan old information. So for example, like if we want to teach something on the, katalah kita nak ajar topik berkaitan dengan for me lah, in my case, for example, kalau saya nak ajar subjek thermodynamic kat students, first thing first, I think I need to relate to the students, to the surrounding, their surrounding. For example, like what are the application of thermodynamic dalam aircon, pakai dalam kettle, dalam fridge, which is surrounding them. I cannot give example which is actually related kepada chemical plant, for example, because chemical plant ni dah lah student ni duduk dalam keadaan sekarang, dia tak datang university, they stay at home, they don't have any other example surrounding them yang can make sense to them. So we try to relate with some examples that is making sense to them. Okay? And then we'll be able to relate whatever the knowledge that they have with something that is close to them. Okay? So that is what we call as knowledge centered. Second lens is learner centered. Learner centered is when actually we start to take into the accounts of the learner's background, their demographic, their background, whatever preconception that they have, and connections to real life context. I think this is what we call as learner-centered. The third lens that we have to look into is what we call as assessment-centered. Okay, assessment-centered, this is where actually we want our student to be able to reflect the learning goals. Most of the time, whenever that we give assessment, it is not only assessment of the learning, but it is also assessment for learning. Okay, assessment for learning, which means that the students be able to get some kind of feedback and they be able to improve that and improve and become better in the future. Okay, So most of the time what happen is bila kita bagi assessment of learning ni, contohnya kalau kita bagi test kat student, when actually that we would give feedback to them when they are actually so that they know whether they are learning well or not. Sometimes it's a bit late. Sometimes entah-entah kadang-kadang terlajak tarikh. Kita bagi feedback from the test is already beyond the date after the exam. The habis exam pun baru dapat. Jadi students tak dapat fix dia punya konsep. Okay, misconception apa semua dia tak dapat fix. So that's why it is very good dalam assessment center we have to also consider what we call as formative assessment. Formative assessment is one way that we do not have to give grade for it. We do not have to grade it, but at the same time we give feedback whether you are doing it right, correct or wrong. So that is what we call as formative assessment. Contohnya kalau macam kita buat PBL, problem based learning, okay? So whenever the time that we give the feedback to the students, whether the students after their discussion kita bagi feedback to the students, okay? Kita bagi feedback pada students. Instead of kita wait until final report hantar baru kita bagi feedback balik, that will take some time. So sometimes as a facilitator, we give some thinking, some thoughts to them, we give feedback to them. That is what we call as formative assessment as well. Right. So that is the third lens. The fourth lens is what we call as community centered. So to ensure that our students be able to learn effectively, the students and instructor should become a learning community that supports each other, okay, to learn and attain high standards. What is also meant here is that whenever that we want to make sure that our students be able to attempt HOTS assessment, okay, HOTS assessment, we must provide a supportive community for them so that they'll be able to develop their thinking process along the way. Jadi dia tak akan rasa dia sorang-sorang, dia tak akan rasa in silo, but they have a team that should be able to give feedback and support with each other. So especially during this time, I know it's a bit challenging. For example, especially for the first year students. First year student dah lah tak sempat masuk university. They barely know each other. Okay, and when they come into the lecture, they will just get to know you, and they feel that you are the source of providers. Okay, so the source of providers, I'm expecting you to give me everything that I need to know. So the students are only confined to only the relationship between us as well as the student, between the lecturer and the student. But at the same time, to make sure that the students really make the full use of learning, they have to ensure that they are actually interacting and be supporting each other among themselves. So we have to make sure that whenever that we create some kind of activities, whenever that we create some kind of support program, it's actually for them to develop bond among themselves, to be part of the community of learning. Okay, so dalam empat lens ni, it has to be there to make sure that the learning become meaningful. Kita tak boleh drop salah satu. So whenever that we want to make sure that our learning too is becoming very meaningful, we have to make sure that does the element of knowledge centered is there, does element of the learner centered is there, assessment centered macam mana, community centered macam mana. So we have to make sure all of this dalam kita melaksanakan teaching and learning activities as well as the assessment. Okay, so this is the second principle about how people learn framework. The third guiding principles that I would like to bring you in is actually what we call as scaffolding. Okay, scaffolding to support student learning. Scaffolding ni is very important. Okay, kalau dalam term engineering, whenever that we build a house ataupun buat bangunan yang permanent, kita akan letak dulu scaffold. Okay, scaffolding. And then after the permanent building tu dah siap, kita akan cabut that scaffolding. So similar thing dalam learning. Dalam learning ni, kalau kita actually we do not give or provide what we call as scaffolding, the students tu, bila kita expect they be able to reach certain level ataupun certain outcome, dia tak akan dapat capai that particular outcome because there is no scaffolding. Imagine macam student tu, kita minta student tu petik pokok, buah dekat pokok, tapi student tu tak sampai. Jadi kita kena provide tangga untuk dia sampai kat situ. So this is where actually, whenever that we conduct teaching and learning activities, whenever that we conduct assessment, it should be able to become the scaffold for the students so that they'll be able to reach the assisted level tu. Okay? So whenever that they reach the assisted level, kita tak perlulah bagi level yang sama, kita cabut balik. Kita cabut that scaffold and we provide another new punya target. And then we provide another assistance so that the students be able to reach there. Scaffolding is different compared to spoon feeding. Okay? Kalau spoon feeding, kita repeat benda yang sama again and again. Okay? Again and again, kita bagi kat student sampailah student tu berjaya lah. Contoh spoon feeding ni ialah macam aktiviti latih to be. Okay? Ataupun what we call it is a rote learning. So for example, like kita, macam saya cakap tadi lah, towards final assessment kita nak suruh bagi student design, tapi kita bagi aktiviti yang sama, latih to be all the time throughout the semester, latih to be. Towards the end kita bagi soalan, of course dia boleh jawab. Okay? Because that is actually the theory of behaviorism, kan? Students to be able to repeat again and again sampailah towards the end, of course dia dapat jawab that particular question. But does the student reach assisted level? Tak. Because they have only been spoon fed. Kalau kita test dia something else, kita twist sikit, then the students are not be able to answer that. So that is the difference between spoon feeding and scaffolding. Scaffolding ni, one of the activity of scaffolding, for example, kalau if the students come and ask question to you, although we know the answer, we may not give the answer straight away. What we can do is actually agak-agak apa yang kita boleh buat. If let's say a student come and ask question to you, okay, what can you do to make sure that the students are being scaffold? Boleh tolong respon tak? What are the things that we could do? For example, like when the students come to you, sir, okay, Dr. Mara said inquiry-based approach. Bagi soalan yang menjurus kepada, definitely. Okay, so that is actually part of scaffolding. We guide them to reach the answer. That's correct. Okay, kita tanya balik soalan. Bukan all the time why. Kita cuba variety-kan lah soalan tu. Okay, we use Socratic approach. For example, like, okay, what do you think about this? Why it doesn't happen that way? Okay, who or how, for example, so that the students finally be able to reach the answer. That's how scaffolding take place. Okay. Another thing, for example, when we want to do the scaffolding, kalau kita ada soalan yang kompleks, case study yang agak kompleks, and we know that kalau kita bagi seketul this particular case study, the students may not be able to attempt it. Dia akan jadi confused, dia akan jadi rasa susah. So what we can do is actually we chunk it down. Okay, kita chunk it down. For the first time, kita chunk it down, and then kita guide the students, and then and guide with the student with question along the way. Jadi bila kita dah bagi those thing, bila dia dah complete, contohnya bila dia dah complete, dia dah tahu macam mana actually this case study would look like, and they are being guided towards it. The next time that when we give that particular ataupun different case study, dia dah tahu macam mana cara dia nak attempt without having to give that chunk down again. Tapi kalau kita give chunk it down all the time, itu dah bukan scaffolding. That is spoon feeding. Okay, so I hope that you clear about scaffolding and spoon feeding. Okay. Alright. It's already 9:55. So what I'm gonna do is we're going to take a break for a while for the next 5 minutes. So it's toilet break, nak minum air ke whatsoever, and then we will continue to the next part, which is the step by step to prepare HOTS assessment. Okay, over to you, Dr. Manash, if let's say you have any announcement and so on.
Thanks, Dr. Tusley. At the moment, nothing much. I think you have answered all the people's questions and they've been very active. Yeah, I guess we have a 5 minutes break and we'll be back by 10. a.m. But if you have any question, feel free to unmute yourself or even ask at the chat box. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Can we start again now? Right?
Yes, yes. Please proceed. Please proceed, Dr.
Okay.
Tusley.
I have a question to you. So that before I proceed, I have a question that I would like you to answer to in the chat section lah. Okay, you can answer in the chat section.
Aku tak semua ni.
The question is actually, if let's say we are giving our student a close-ended assessment. Close-ended assessment ni usually in our practice is a final, kalau contohnya final exam ataupun test, written lah kan. That is the practice that we always do. Which particular level in the Bloom taxonomy yang sebenarnya in reality dia akan boleh sampai? Faham kan? Maksudnya kita ada level 6 level of Bloom taxonomy. If we are giving the students close-ended assessment, which is close-ended written final examination, for example, do you think what level that the students can reach their thinking process? Okay. Any other thoughts? Depends on the allocated time. Ada lagi tak? Level paling mana paling tinggi yang kita boleh sampai? Ada tak? Maksudnya okay. Dia the best design that we could have for our student to reach Bloom taxonomy ni, the level HOTS yang dia boleh sampai dalam close-ended exam is actually level 4. Up to level 4 saja. We cannot bring our students to level 5 and 6 if let's say we are doing close-ended written examination. Sampai level 4 saja dia boleh capai. Itu pun if it is a properly designed. Kalau kita most of the time students bila what happen is that the thinking process, kita kena imagine the thinking process yang berlaku dalam final exam. Okay, dalam final exam, written examination, first thing first, the students need to recall. Whenever that you give question to them, the students need to recall them first. The second one, the students really need to show their understanding. So that's why they be able to explain or describe on something. And if let's say the students need to be given certain case study, they need to start to recall balik. Case study ni pernah belajar, and then they be able to apply information or theory that they have in that particular answer, in the particular context or problem, and then they may need be able to do some kind of analysis which has already also been taught inside the class. Tapi if let's say they want to go to the level of making some kind of comparison and contrast evaluation and create something new, dia tak boleh sampai dalam close-ended examination. If let's say the students kita nak bawa student kita ke level 5 and 6, then this is where actually open-ended assessments need to be given. Okay, so that is one thing. So let's go back to Mentimeter. Saya ada soalan. I need to give you, I would like to give you some of this learning outcome. Okay, I would like to give you some learning outcome, and I would like you to decide what type of assessments that could possibly be given to the student. Boleh So let's go to www.menti.com again and use the same code 6826734. Okay, we go to menti.com. We go to menti.com and then use the code 6826734. I have several learning outcome that I would like to ask you, and I hope that you could be able to respond to me. Okay. First thing is this particular learning outcome to apply analytical and theoretical skills to solve calculation related problem. Okay. So kalau kita tengok guide word kat sini, this is something got to do with level 3, which is apply. So what kind of assessment that we could give to our student so it reflect the activity of thinking that the students could achieve? Can I get some feedback from others? We have only one response, 3 responses so far. Saya cakap dekat student, selalunya dekat student saya, we have 67 participant here. I need 50% respon baru saya move on. Let me see some other feedback, some other responses from others. Ini maksudnya baru 9 orang yang mendengar apa yang saya kongsikan. To apply analytical and theoretical skills to solve calculation related problem. Okay. So most of you agree that we should be able to use case studies ataupun role play kat sini. Sedang cari apa nak buat. Okay. Kena buka browser baru www.menti.com and use the code 6826734. Pakai kod tu dan you'll be able to respond to this question. Question dia real time Kalau maksudnya kalau saya switch kepada next page, dia tak jumpa dah question ni, dia akan jumpa soalan lain pula. Okay, so from here I could see that many of you feel that if let's say we want to achieve this particular outcome, we could give case studies ataupun kita buat role play ataupun kita bagi software simulation so that the students can compute in it, use the theory and then lepas tu do the calculation. Many of you feel that MCQ dan online question and answers may not be the solution. Yeah, you can see that this is a bit close-ended kat sini tapi you can also achieve open-ended. Even actually level 3, level 4 we can do it open-ended so we can use case study, software simulation, group project, reflective writing so that they can remember how they have done. Okay, for example, you give certain task, do some kind of calculation and then reflect balik on that practices. So that could be one way forward. Perhaps essay writing ni nampak mungkin tak significant sangat, okay? Sebab dia nak kena solve calculation, okay? And use the information or theory that they have learned before. Okay, let's move to the next question. Okay, to interpret, compare, and contrast ideas in the health science studies. Okay, so what do you think? What kind of assessments that we could give to our student? To interpret, compare, and contrast ideas in the health science studies. What are the things that could be given to our student? So most of you feel that you should be giving group project so that the students be able to do some kind of interpretation, making some comparison, okay? And the students should also be given some kind of case studies so that they be able to develop, achieve this particular outcome. Essay writing, okay? And reflective writing. Reflective writing, which means that perhaps after we give the group project and they make some kind of reflection of doing it. Okay, again, you feel that by giving MCQ or online question and answers is not the answer lah. Okay, good. Right, the next one. To demonstrate effective negotiating skills among the peers. Okay, how? What we can do in order for us to make sure that the students are be able to demonstrate effective negotiating skills. I think this is also important kan dalam medical punya ni, especially the doctors, they need to know how to talk to the patients, for example. So what are the things that they could do to make sure that they develop these effective negotiating skills? Okay, so we can still start to see that we are seeing something like we could give group project. Ni ada satu elemen baru saya tambah kat sini. For example, we can give service learning to the students. Okay, service learning, which means that the students serve the community, they do it as a team, and therefore after that they have to do some kind of negotiation, nak deal, nak dapatkan, nak jalankan projek dan sebagainya, they have to do some kind of negotiation. So we be able to develop this. Case studies, reflective writing, and so on. That is good. Okay. To demonstrate the ethics in health science. To demonstrate the ethics in health science. I think this is something very close to all of you as well, perhaps. So macam mana kita nak make sure that the students be able to demonstrate ethics dalam health science? What are the things they could do? Okay, so from the response that I can see that most of you agree that we should be able to give students some kind of community service work, doing some kind of group project, so they be able related group project, especially on the health science and related to, and they be able to demonstrate ethics on it. We give them case studies or role play. And then we should couple with, perhaps we couple with reflective writing. Again, not so much on online question and answers, not so much on software simulation. This particular activity for me is actually just to share with you that we really need to be authentic in preparing our assessment. Okay? Kita tak boleh buat assessment ni based on kita rasa, okay lah, dalam semester ni saya nak buat 5 quiz, 6 test, 3 assignment, macam tu je. It does not happen to be like that. Sometimes the assessment ataupun the assignments that we give to our students it could be very simple. It could be macam contohnya macam one learning outcome, one assignment, for example, one assessment per learning outcome. But as long as it is impactful to the students, it really makes sure that the student achieve the outcome that we intend for them. That's it. It doesn't have to be like, for example, okay, I need to do 4 quizzes this. Kita sangat terbiasa macam tu kan. Kita bila we design the course outcome, okay, we're going to have 3 tests, 2 quizzes and so on. Tapi quizzes dengan test tu nak reflect apa sebenarnya? What do we really want to achieve in our students? But if we really want to make sure that our student to achieve the outcome that we design for them, this is where we need to come up with really authentic assessment, so that we really observe the students be able to achieve the outcome that we want. Okay, so thank you for that. Okay, let us move back to the slide. Some of the things that if let's say if you go to this particular website that I have typed here, later I'll be sharing with you the slides. Okay, there are certain intended learning outcomes that has been stated here, and these are some kind of activities that we could do. Okay, for example, in my case, for example, as an engineer, there are things that cannot be simply substituted by online. For example, like nak buat lab work, okay, chemical engineering related lab work, memang student kena datang dan buat. Dia tak boleh simply being substituted. It cannot be simply substituted with other things. But there are of course certain kind of intended learning outcome that we have that we could use different or multi-mode of assessment. Okay, kita boleh pakai article, literature review, case study, essay, MCQ and so on. Okay, but it doesn't have, but certain things it cannot be, we cannot simply just macam guna certain thing. For example, like if you want the students to be able to design or create or perform on something, it cannot be done. Students cannot do MCQ for that. Okay, students cannot do presentation for that, but students really need to do something to show it that they are doing it. Okay, they need to perform. If let's say they need to perform, they have to perform lah. If let's say they need to develop report or project, they need to be able to do that. Okay, kalau tengok slide yang seterusnya pun sama, is a continuation. For example, like the students need to do assessing and managing information. So we need to decide what kind of assignment that we could give to our students. Okay, so that it becomes authentic. That is very important things that we could do. Okay, so we're going to do some kind of activities. So I'm going to actually break you into several groups. Okay, I'm going to break you into several groups. Okay, so what are the activities? The activities is, okay, saya akan bagi masa dalam setengah jam, 30 minit. You and your team members are required to develop a team-based summative assessment. Team-based, maksudnya it is a group project lah. Group project ataupun group related punya assessment lah. For subject immunization and communication. Ni subject makeup macam subject lah. I don't know whether it exists or not kan. And the duration to attempt this assessment is between 2 to 4 hours. Maksudnya students, whenever that they were given this particular assessment, it should be taking about 2 to 4 hours their time in order for them to do it. The learning outcome to be achieved by the students taking this subject are as follows. Okay, this is the learning outcome. To propose the best and effective communication method to avoid spreading of misinformation regarding vaccines. Okay, ni dah tailor-made dengan the faculty itself. To propose the best and effective communication method to avoid spreading of misinformation regarding vaccine. So kalau kita tengok the keyword dekat sini, to propose. To propose is already at a higher level. Okay, maksudnya kalau dia tengok daripada textbook, tak cukup untuk for them to propose. So it must be of a certain activities. Thinking process activities must be there so that they be able to make some kind of proposal. Okay, because they need to undergo the all the thinking process sampailah higher level. So to propose is actually a bit high. It is level 6, okay? To be able to create something, which is to propose or something. The best and effective communication method to avoid spreading of misinformation regarding vaccines. So after this, I'm going to give you in a breakout team. So you're going to be in a breakout team, okay? And I would like you to appoint a moderator and recorder. Terus participant drop tadi. Okay, never mind, it's okay. Saya akan divide into a team and you need to appoint a moderator and a recorder. Okay, maksudnya seorang yang akan mempengerusikan the session and another one is for them to record whatever the discussion point. So I would like you to prepare the draft of this assessment using doc, PowerPoint, and specify the method of assessment. So for example, you want it to be a project, you want to be a team quiz, you want to be an assignment, task ke whatsoever lah, up to you. Ataupun you want to be out of the box, never mind, it's okay. And I would like you to post your prepared question in document or PowerPoint format at given the link here lah, https://krdutp/fpsk. So maybe we can copy this and put in the chat section later so that you can copy. I hope that you are clear with the task. So the task is actually we want to develop an instruction. Okay, kita nak develop instruction for team-based summative assessment for the subject of immunization and communication, and we want to attain this learning outcome. So kalau in order for us to attain this learning outcome, I would like you as a team to discuss how we can best to make sure that the student achieve this particular learning outcome. What kind of activities, what kind of assignment or assessment that we should give to the student so that the student be able to achieve this particular outcome. So let me bring back you to going to
Dr. Tusley, can you just enlarge the activity 2 and ask the participant to take an image of this? Kalau mereka masuk
okay,
background room, at least they know what to do, kan?
Sure.
So all the participants, before you go into your background room, Please take a picture of this, or either Dr. Fazli can copy and paste and letak dalam chat pun boleh. Tapi I think we'll just take a picture lah, and then before you enter into your rooms. Thank you.
Let me try to send the document, the one that I snapped screenshot. Okay, sekejap dia tak appear dokumen tu lagi. Okay. Okay, I have put in the chat section the screenshot of this activity. So right now, I'm going to randomly put you into the breakout session. Okay. And in the breakout rooms, perhaps I would have about 6 breakout rooms. It's easier for me to. I know that some of you may not be around, tak apa. So it's 7 to 8 participants per room. Okay. So I'm creating the breakout room right now. And I'm going to open the rooms lah for the next 30 minutes sampai 10.52. From time to time, I will broadcast lah the information that is needed. Okay? Thank you. For other participants, saya dah buka dah bilik-bilik, so you already been assigned to the room, so you can join each room. So I hope that you could join and discuss with your team members.
Anyone having problem? Can you just let us know?
Yes. Ada setengah tu dia tak accept button untuk join.
If anyone is having problem, can you just unmute and ask for assistance and we'll try to help? Thank you. Sekejap ya Dr. Siti Zubaida, saya cuba carikan which group are you supposed to be in. You're supposed to be in room 5. Sekejap ya, I'll put you to room 6 and then I'll try. Usually there's a pop-up yang akan tanya, please go and join that group. So just tekan yes, join. Okay dah. Anyone having any more problems? Dr. Huzwa, are you okay? Is anyone having problems in joining their breakout rooms, or you have not been assigned to any of the breakout rooms? Please do let me know. Thank you.
basically what kind of instruction that you give to the student so that you can achieve the learning outcome. So kalau kita tengok kat sini, they are sharing here group project and presentation. Form a group of 4 to 5 people and choose your group leader. Produce a short report on the topic above. Distribute the task so you can complete this within 4 hours. In your report, you must highlight the following item. What are the techniques in cleaning the living room? Advantage and disadvantage of each technique. Propose the best and effective technique by giving justification. Present your project. Okay, so this is one of the tasks given. Breakout session number 9 is actually to propose the best and effective method for cleaning the living room. So assessment method is the video project. Gather a group of 4 to 5, reflect the cleaning methods taught in this course. Okay, propose the best and effective method for cleaning the living room, create a video presentation. So terus datang dengan rubrik. Okay, because rubric is supposed to be second, but then it's okay never mind if you have done it. I also think that rubric yang part tu kita tak sempat nak buat. And then breakout session 42, dia punya suggestion, students are required to work as a group of 5. You are then needed to brainstorm. I think some of you are still in this main room. So kalau dapat join the breakout sessions tu that has already been assigned to you, that will be very good. Okay, so you can help the team members dalam all this room to discuss further. Okay, I think they are doing something else, Dr. Manraj.
Yeah, I guess for some what is this? They are as usual lah. They become students kan. They might be attached to other. Maybe they have clinics. You know, like they buat consultation. So while listening, masa dia ada free. So they might do that lah, Dr. Tusley. Yes, this is the challenges in the medical and health sciences punya field.
Tapi
They're
it's the same thing
multitasking.
like apa? Same like student lah. The true reflection of how when we teaching the students and the students are doing something else as well.
Correct. Very true. So basically kita ada 3 group je yang aktif buat masa ni. Good morning. Are you all okay? Do you need help in going and joining the breakout room session? Do let us know. Thank you. So we'll be starting in 3 minutes, kan, Dr. Tusley?
Oh yes, yes. I'll be starting in 3 minutes. And then see what's the output lah. Maybe tak banyak kot, tapi tak apa. It's okay. I can share other group findings juga lah.
Yeah. The Padlet seems a bit sunyi sepi. Kalau tak, maybe just shout out ke, suruh share ke.
Tadi dah sudah shout out sekali. So,
Kan?
even actually, I think it was only like two groups saja kot yang betul-betul.
Yes. Group.
In your faculty, it's only for program medicine punya program saja, apa ni ke, medic saja ke ataupun ada program
No, we have medic and we have health sciences.
Okay.
So we have biomedical science, we have environmental occupational health, we have nutrition, we have dietetic, we have nursing.
Oh, okay. So it's quite large lah.
Ah.
How many faculty members? How many of them?
Faculty members, I think it's 300 hampir nak 400.
That's a lot.
Yes, a lot. Because we have also the hospital pengajar, so it's together. Tapi memang yang ni is the largest faculty lah in terms of academic staff.
Okay. How long you been teaching in UPM?
This will be my 8th year.
8th year. Your background medic lah. You are doctor.
No, I'm not. I'm biomedical science. I'm a molecular toxicologist. But recently as well, in a couple of years, 2 years ago, started venturing into teaching and learning lah. Approaches as well.
Okay, that's good. And you did your PhD in molecular.
Yeah, molecular. So I look at the toxicity effects of medications.
Interesting.
The interesting part is I'm also a Commonwealth scholar. Wow. 2006.
Long time ago.
Yes, very long.
Okay, very long. Masa tu you buat is your PhD, is it?
Yeah, my PhD at Surrey.
Oh, okay. So you did in Surrey until 2009,
10.
Okay, so it's almost a similar time lah masa that I went there in 2009.
Okay.
I came back 2013.
Sama. I think we can call them in ready for the breakout session.
Sure. Can you still hear my kids shouting ke? Dengar tak? Tak dengar
Tak.
Dia actually he was shouting up. Dia main game sambil game main.
But no, it's I guess it's absolutely fine. So far tak ada sangat pun, tak ada.
Oh, okay, alright. I takut nanti.
Oh, so is this your office ke?
It's not office. This is my studio.
Studio, cewa. Kat rumah lah, studio kat rumah
kat rumah. So I have this podcast punya stuff. So sometimes we do live podcast ke something like that.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, I hope that everyone is here. Padlet ni agak sunyi sepi. So kalau ada discussion apa-apa boleh share kat sini sementara waktu. While actually I show some of the previous punya workshop, similar workshop that I have conducted, and they are sharing lah Okay. I understand that many of you here have multiple tasks to do. Okay, I understand that, appreciate it. But at the same time, if let's say you have discussed something previously, I noticed that there are 2 or 3 groups that have do the discussion. So can you please share in the link provided? So I type the link again. Um, so this is the link. So I hope that you can actually share your discussion points in the group. Okay. While at the same time, I will also share with you some of the findings that we have done. Because recently I also conducted this kind of activity with faculty of pharmacy in UiTM. Okay, UiTM. So these are actually some of their sharings lah. It's the similar similar what we call that, similar learning outcomes that is being asked, similar topics. So for example, like one of this group, dia actually they record a video of role play discussing on the best and effective communication method to avoid spreading misinformation regarding vaccines. And then each of the student, they give a role, for example, like a role to discuss about, for example, use the social media. Ada yang guna macam short drama, hard print and main platform for MOH. So they are discussing the pro and cons and get the informations, and then after that they actually propose which one is the best practices that they could do. So this is one of the discussion point lah daripada group ni. Another group is actually they come up with PBL. So PBL on this topic. So they have this outcome which is to describe vaccine, relate the vaccination, and then create an effective video presentation. Okay, so the instruction is being given such as read the case studies and then prepare a shared video, and students are required to upload the video. Tapi kalau if you really see from this instruction, dia sebenarnya tak betul-betul memenuhi the learning outcome intended. Okay, if you were looking at this, is actually the learning outcome is to propose the best and effective method of spreading misinformation regarding vaccines, right? So dekat sini the task is only prepare a short video, which is not really up to the level of proposing lah, because they just only use one method. The most important part, when you want to propose, the students need to actually evaluate several platform, okay, several ways of doing it, and then barulah dapat be able to propose the best effective method. Okay, so this is some kind of macam ada lacking sikit lah dalam this kind of sharing of instruction. Maksudnya tak beberapa memenuhi, it doesn't fulfill really well in term of the target. Okay. Using fake news to stop people from taking COVID-19 can land you in hot water, says Deputy IGP. So the instruction is, all students need to prepare an infographic poster about the following topic that appeared in the news. In 2 to 4 hours, students need to point out the following: which platform to use to educate the public, and pro and cons of the platform. Okay, so here the students also need to do some kind of discussion. Perhaps they need to investigate some data lah. Maksudnya they need to find information from different platform and discuss about it lah. This is what can be done lah within, if let's say we say about 2 to 4 hours. If you feel that the task is very important, that you need to extend the time, of course we can go beyond that lah. Maksudnya tak semestinya kata kita, okay, I just want to do within this particular period. But if you really feel that, okay, I need to make sure that the students really achieve this learning outcome, so we give some kind of extended time. 2 to 4 hours here doesn't mean that the students need to spend continuous 2 to 4 hours. It can be macam some kita stop sekejap, and then the student do the following activities pula the next day. Mungkin today is the discussion day. The next day students start to create some kind of infographic, and then lepas tu letak kat different platform, and then see how the acceptance of the people, for example, number of likes, number of shares ke contohnya, and then kenapa this poster kurang, number comments yang macam mana student boleh dapat. So these are the things that the students can do. Lepas tu the other day they have another like 2 hours of discussion, and finally barulah they come out dengan which particular platform they feel could be the best. So that kind of a task could be given to the student to fulfill that learning outcome intended. Okay. Masih kosong, sunyi sepi, tak ada orang share. So okay lah.
Dr. Tusley, tak boleh
Yes.
share, tak ada plus arrow kat bawah ni kan? Boleh tunjuk mereka the plus arrow.
Oh tu ada kat situ. Kat
Ah.
bawah. If you really see dekat bawah kanan ada plus arrow kat situ. For example, maybe I can ask ada 2 group tadi. Prof, it's okay. Never mind. Kalau macam tu kita, I think what we can do, kita just share je. Macam Dr. Niza tadi, any idea Dr. Niza? Apa yang Dr. Niza tak tahu macam mana nak share tu? It's okay. What's your idea? What's your idea?
I think I buat assessment, maybe essay question. Something like you are invited to give talk about in Facebook Live. The topic is vaccine, fakta berta. So you are so your talk of question number 1, explain what is vaccine, their types and their role. The second one, address the benefit versus the risk of the vaccine. The third question maybe like explain the concern, the public concern of vaccine and how to address the concern. 2 to 4 hours punya essay question lah.
Okay. So you
I don't know.
essay lah, maksudnya your plan is you supposed to give, you want to plan to give essay lah kepada student tu kan? Alright. Yang lain lah, yang group Prof Chia punya group macam mana Prof? Your discussion macam mana? How is it going on within your team?
Hi Prof.
Yeah.
We couldn't share it on the Padlet. I can't find the plus icon. So I just share the Google slide lah.
Okay.
In
Let me try to
in the chat box. It's actually we don't manage to come out with very complete assessment. Okay. That's what we have during our discussions. So we have to the instructions to the students. So the students are required to come up with a group proposal of the best and effective communication method regarding the vaccine. They will give 2 to 3 hours for the discussion and to do the proposal.
Okay.
In the proposal, they have to discuss the selected platform on how to avoid spreading of misinformation regarding vaccines. So they could come up with, they can review, maybe they want to review TikTok, they want to review Facebook, they want to review different social medias or different methods. Then they come up with why they want to select the method. And then they have to prepare the proposal and then present the proposal at the end of the assessment.
Right, okay. So this is the you can see this, right? I've already projected this.
Yes.
Okay. So you are required to come up with a group proposal, discuss platform, and then prepare and present the proposal. Okay, good. All right. Any other another group tadi just now? I think Dr. Elisha ke siapa? Am I right? Dr. Elisha.
Yes, Dr. Elisha.
Okay, Dr. Elisha ada sharing apa-apa?
Sekejap ya.
we came up with a PBL,
Okay.
mini PBL, and then we provide instruction to the students for a duration of 2 to 3 hours. So the question would be to answer the objective of the figures, and then finally to achieve the learning outcomes lah. So what we came up with is that the question is COVID-19 vaccination rate and or COVID-19 cases. So the mode of delivery for the student is to present their case using PowerPoint, at least for 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes presentation, and then they have to provide a fila table, and also in the end they would prepare a report or reflective writing lah.
Okay.
Yang saya.
So maksudnya you start to give a problem to them about the current issues related dengan COVID-19 dan sebagainya, and then they have to go through that kind of related problem, and then they need to discuss, and masa itulah dia belajar pasal define vaccine and so on, right?
Exactly.
And then they try to come up with the solution to it.
Okay.
Thank you very much to those who actually involved in the discussion. It's okay for those yang now we understand how difficult. Okay, so again that's the thing, sebab kadang-kadang it's not, again it's not easy to come up with instruction kan. Apatah lagi if let's say we are doing it all by ourselves, right? Kita ada outcome tapi kita we cannot actually decide in term of, for example, like how do we come up with the best and effective learning outcome for our students. Okay, so that is somehow very important lah for us. Kita lepas ni kita boleh tengok balik, revisit balik. So because I think the reflection from today's activity, we should go back to our learning outcomes, try to look balik. Sebenarnya betul tak kita bagi assessment kita yang authentic dekat students? Ataupun sebenarnya because it is just, okay, I'm used to give to do this, so I'm just going to continue doing this. And then lepas tu bila kita try nak when we want to justify kenapa student result tak okay ke, ataupun student tak mencapai the HOTS level that is needed, then it come back to our main practice. Okay, alright. Prof Chia, Dr. Tusley wish to ask if we needed specialized rubric in marking them. Any reference of the rubric? Okay, that's a good question, Prof. And we move next to rubric. I have actually.
Dr. Tusley, can I ask a question? I was just wondering. I was just thinking while doing this activity. I know I'm not in the group, but I was just wondering. The learning outcome is to propose the best communication method. Would it be okay if we ask students to try all the a few selected methods, means do an activity and immerse themselves in that method, and then after that baru propose a final method?
Yes.
That they think would be the best.
That would be the best. That would be the best lah. Maksudnya the students let them immerse themselves. For example, like student create a campaign kan? Campaign about vaccine. Okay. And then lepas tu ataupun campaign about spreading misinformation of the vaccine. And then provide it everywhere lah. Letak buat dekat TikTok ke, buat dekat kat mana-mana. Especially and then at the same time the students can get the data. The data comes in, right? So when the data comes in, they need to evaluate lah. For example, like the demographic of these people who actually are against the vaccine. Where does it come from? Kalau contohnya kalau letak dekat Twitter saja bagus ke tak, kalau letak kat TikTok, kalau letak kat Facebook macam mana. So they will be able to come up with the best possible ways in order for them to spread this misinformation. Jadi it becomes a meaningful learning experience for them lah, rather than macam dia theoretically discuss about the about recommendation or proposing based on the textbook. This is something that they are doing it themselves. So it will be a good practice lah. Okay. Before I answer Prof Chia punya question, I would like to actually bring you into problem solving versus exercise solving. I know that many of us have heard about macam problem based learning and so on. This is something that we have to be clear about lah. Apa the difference between problem solving and as well as exercise solving. Okay. Problem solving ni it involve a process used to obtain a best answer to an unknown subject to some constraint. Maksudnya dekat sini, if we ourselves actually we do not have whenever that we give a problem solving, okay, it is an activity where the problem to the answer towards it is an unknown, which means that it doesn't have to be only one answer. It can be other answers, similar answers. But when you start to have only one and right answer for the data given, that is not problem solving. That is considered as exercise solving. Macam tadi, kalau kita kata propose the best method for vaccination semua, kalau kita tanya, if you ask right now, can we give the answer? It can be various answer, right? Maksudnya still directing to some answers and it can be various answer. It doesn't have to be a one and only right answer. But if let's say we creating macam case study contohnya, and then tapi jawapan dia cuma satu je, there is no other answer acceptable, that is not considered as problem solving. That is what we call as exercise solving. Itu number satu. Yang kedua, kalau dalam exercise solving, the situation is well defined. So maksudnya kita bagi some kind of problem statement, assumption semua dah clear everything semua. So it is well defined. But for problem solving, it has to be ill defined. There is no problem statement and there is some ambiguity the information given. So in order for us to actually come up with what do you call that, open-ended assessment, okay, we should go more towards problem solving activities rather than exercise solving. Sebab exercise solving ni sometimes kita boleh jumpa dalam textbook, okay. That is why most of the time, okay, bila kita ambil soalan daripada textbook and we give to the student, and lepas tu kita jumpa dekat chat. Sebab apa? Sebab it's easy. It's fairly easy for the student to actually get the answer because it is only one and right answer. Okay? So for the problem solving assumption, in order for the student to solve the problem, assumption must be made, what is known and what needs to be found. Another information about problem solving and exercise solving, kalau exercise solving ni, the student has encountered similar exercises in books, in class or in homework. Maksudnya kalau kita bagi latih to be kat student, okay, that is no longer considered problem solving. It is an exercise solving. Exercise often prescribe assumption to be made, principles to be used, and sometimes they even give hints. There is usually one approach that gives the right answer. That is exercise solving. Kalau problem solving pula, the content of the problem is brand new. Maksudnya kita bagi sesuatu yang student tak boleh jumpa pun dalam textbook. Okay. Yang kedua, there is no explicit statement in the problem that tell the student what knowledge, technique, skill, chapter mana nak cover, topik mana dan ni. Students will need to figure out by themselves. That is actually problem solving. And there could be more than one valid approach. So that is problem solving. Another thing that we have to also bear in mind, kalau dalam exercise solving, there is a usual method. Contohnya kalau dalam bentuk calculation, dia ada procedure, algorithm dia dah, students are already clear with it. That is considered exercise solving. Okay? Ataupun exercise involve on one subject, and in many cases, only one topic. And not so much into communication skills, because most of the time solution involve maths and sketches. But if let's say we want our students to do problem solving, so the problem solving, the algorithm for solving the problem is unclear, and sometimes it need to be integrated from variety of subject. So this is what I would wish actually. Kita ni dah daripada lama lagi, even when we were students, daripada dulu lagi, we feel that actually the way how we teach the student is based on, you know, it's much easier for the students to learn through subject based, kan? Subject, and then lepas tu, and with the hope that the student be able to relate, to connect all the information daripada subjek-subjek ni, bila dah graduate ni, it makes sense for them. But sometimes, it has become so norms, practices that all the subject ni, they become very silo. Okay? Very silo. And sometimes most of the time students fail to actually connect one subject to another subject. So sometimes a good approach for us is actually if we could be able to integrate certain subject together and come up with one problem, that would be wonderful. Sebab in the future, okay, I mean even currently right now, when we talk for example issue related to health, COVID-19 for example, I don't think that one subject could have a solution towards the current situation that we're facing. Which means that the students need to be ready whenever that they want to solve this problem as an adult later on. It's not only one discipline can solve this particular problem. They need to be able to talk to various disciplines. They need to understand other people's as well, other people's background as well, so that they can talk through and solve the problem together. So we need to actually prep our students so they should be able to integrate the information or knowledge from different background, different sources, different topics, different subject, etc. to solve the problem. Barulah dia akan get ready to solve the future punya problem. Okay, so that's why we really want to make sure that our students need to be able to acquire problem solving punya skill. Tapi kalau kita keep giving exercise solving, maksudnya bagi satu soalan ada jawapan kat belakang, jawapan dia pula satu je jawapan. Okay, and then keep doing the same thing over and over again, we cannot expect our students to turn up to become problem solver. And problem solver, they should require strong oral or written communication skills to convey the essence of the problem and present the result. So that is actually the difference between problem solving and exercise solving. Okay. So, I just wanted to know, can you give some kind of feedback to me lah? By knowing that the difference right now between problem solving and exercise solving, can you please share with me what kind of problem that you could develop based on your courses so that the students can solve it? What is a suitable problem? So you can go back to menti.com, type the code 68266734. 68266734. So please give based example based on your course. What is a suitable problem to be developed instead of giving an exercise? Boleh tak share dengan saya? So can you please type here? Pergi dekat www.menti.com and use the code 68266734. Okay, give you a minute for that. Boleh tak share balik? Give example based on your course. Apa yang you rasa kind of suitable problem? Maksudnya go specific to the problem. What kind of problem? Contohnya you are teaching this particular course and I think a suitable problem that could be developed based on this is on this particular topic. And this should be given as part of problem instead of exercise.
Dr. Tusley, could you just give an example in your thermodynamics course, or how would you address this question? Then it can help them to answer as well.
Okay, sure. I was thinking of giving the example later, but the first thing.
Yeah, I think we need the push a bit to see what does it mean by this suitable problem.
Okay. Okay, kalau kalau for example in my courses, for example, when I give the problem to the students, I give a problem related to one of the topics I have taught before. For example, this is a subject about reaction engineering. I taught the students about designing a reactor. So I give them a problem for which they were tasked as an engineer to design a membrane reactor. A membrane reactor is something that they had never come across within the subject. Maksudnya sepanjang 12 weeks, 13 weeks tu dia tak belajar pun this particular topic. But they learn about the design of reactor, which is, and then there are different type of reactor, only basic type of reactor. Now they need to go beyond it. Okay, they need to come out and solve this particular problem. And the membrane itself, they need to learn from different subject. So that is why actually they integrated part masuk dalam the problem. So they were tasked to give the design, diameter, sizing, and all those kind of things. So that is actually the problem that we could give the students. As I mentioned earlier, the student nampak problem tu brand new. Okay, it's not something that they have come across. And it is not something that they can find it in their textbook in order for them to solve it. For which they need to find lots of resources, gather it together, and then solve the problem. So perhaps that could give some idea what kind of problem that you could give to make sure that students become a problem solver rather than an exercise solver. So if I can see from here, what is highlighted here, non-compliance to medication, why and how to solve. Okay, potential natural product-based COVID-19 vaccine, which means that the students need to find some kind of solution, make some research, I think, perhaps kat sini gene modification and public acceptance. So which means that this is where perhaps the students need to debate out of that and discuss some kind of proposal, how to make sure that the public will be able to accept it ke, ataupun kenapa public tak nak accept ke. I think as long as benda tu tak ada dalam textbook, then perhaps this is something that allow the student to explore more. Develop menu that suits pregnant women who are obese and anemic. That is interesting. As long as they don't have the current solution, the students need to figure it out, because kalau dia jumpa dalam internet, dia copy paste, dia tak fit the purpose lah. So which means that you need to find solution. The problem tu macam something yang okay, kalau dia cari kat internet pun there is no answer, there is no direct answer kat situ, but the students need to figure out, sit down in the group and discuss about it. Okay. Any other things that you feel suitable problem that you can make in your class? What are the things that you feel that okay, I can give this as part of the problem solving? Ataupun mungkin some of you have been doing PBL before this. So what kind of problem that you give to the student to make sure that they can learn something out of this? Tak ada dah no more respond I hope that you get some ideas from here. So okay. So let us move to okay. So right now, okay, we want to develop some step by step of preparing HOTS problem. Okay, so this is the next section. So there are actually 4 steps that I would like to share with you for us to prepare HOTS problem. The first one is actually, first thing first is to decide what will be the learning outcome to be attained and design instruction. Okay, this is where actually yang first activity tadi, maksudnya bila kita ada learning outcome, kita nak assess apa? What we want to assess? Ability to apply, ability to evaluate, analyze, create or justify and so on. That is number one. The second one, before we give this particular assessment kepada student kita, we need to make sure that we activate the intended outcome ataupun verbs yang kita spell out dalam learning outcome tadi. So we have to activate it, become part of learning activities in our class. Kalau kita tak activate it, if you remember about constructive alignment just now, dia tak akan align with each other. So we have to make sure that if let's say you want the students to be able to analyze, so the analyze activities must be there inside our class. How does analyze activities can be activated? Contohnya macam discussion in the class. There will be some activities, there will be some engagement. Okay, there will be some time for them to think and for them to reflect on certain things. That is kind of analysis punya activities. Barulah kita boleh bagi assignments yang bersifat analysis. contohnya. And then the third one, in order for us to prepare the students towards answering the open-ended assessment or HOTS assessment towards the end tu, daripada awal lagi kita kena develop the HOTS activities. The HOTS assessment tu kita kena buat, even formative assessment pun kita kena buat dalam bentuk HOTS. Okay? In such a way that if let's say you are doing open book quizzes, open book tests, even kita nak try them, kita bagi some question pun is not a direct answer, some questions that they need to discuss in the class, which is quite open-ended. Only then the students be able to prepare themselves towards actually achieving, be able to answer HOTS assessment towards the end. Kalau kita macam contohnya, kita dah prepare dah HOTS assessment towards the end, open-ended lagi, final exam open-ended. Tapi dalam kelas kita is just entirely lecture, non-stop, and there is no time for the students to think through. Okay, even there is no time for the student to activate the verbs of the outcome. Jadi bila jadi perkara macam tu, sebenarnya kita tak scaffold the students. So if remember, the third guideline is actually to scaffold the students. So if we do not scaffold the students tak akan sampai kepada apa yang kita nak towards the end of the semester. And only then barulah kita administer final exam. So we open-ended with rubric prepare. Okay. Some of the guideline that I would like to share with you here. For example, daripada step 1 tu, kita kena tanya balik, what do we want our students to achieve? Okay. So we have to actually design and plan the instruction based on the real application. So what is the function of the knowledge? And the cognitive outcome should be based on the thinking process involved. So our outcome tu, kita have to make sure, kalau kita dah letakkan outcome the analysis, you have to make sure that all the taxonomy of the level of the thinking tu happen before the student finally achieve that particular yang guide words yang kita letak dalam kita punya learning outcome tu. So step number 2 is for the students to activate the intended outcomes of verbs via teaching and learning activities in the class. So the teaching learning activities must be based on the intended learning outcome. As I mentioned earlier, so in order for us to support the students so that the students be able to answer HOT assessment, okay, we have to make sure that the students actively involved inside the class. So they doing the active verb inside the class so that we can achieve the intended learning outcome, ILO ni just now. And we add the scaffolding where necessary. What it is mean here, maksudnya kalau student tu perlukan support in order for them to answer some kind of formative assessment, then we give the support needed, and then kita scaffold dia, and then when you feel that the students can go to a bit higher level, then kita cabut scaffold tu, kita letak scaffold lain. Okay? And make connection to the real situation and other topics learned as well. So maksudnya dalam kelas, whenever that we are conducting some kind of activities, okay, then we should be able to relate whatever the things that we are teaching them, we are giving lecture to them with some examples that is making sense to them, that is actually connecting them to the real world application. Okay, so among activities that we could do inside our class, for example, like what we call as informal cooperative learning. Okay, instead of kita bagi soalan kat students, ataupun I think yang paling lousy sekali bila kita tanya soalan, do you understand guys or not? Do you understand or not? Kan? Nak jawab dalam kita minta, okay, tolong can you please share with me, do you understand or not? Student sama ada dia jawab yes or no ataupun krik-krik lah. Maksudnya there is no response at all. Kalau kita tengok dekat chat pun, student are not willing to respond to you. That's one thing. Okay? But there are ways in order for us to trigger the discussion or engagement or activities among the student. First thing first, we should allow the students to think on their own first. Kalau kita bagi soalan kat students, kita tak boleh tak bagi soalan, do you understand or not? Kita kena bagi soalan yang lebih bersifat open-ended. What, why, how and so on. Based on our lecture, kita put some kind of question. How do you think that this particular ni is different to what I've been teaching you in the past, for example? That's one question. So, individually, I would like you to think for the next 30 seconds, what will be the answer? So, dia pun kena fikir the next 30 seconds. Okay, right now, team, okay, these are the activities that I've given you. So you have already think on your own. Now like you to be in pair. So I'm going to put you in the breakout session, for example. So breakout, discuss for the next 3 to 4 minutes, and then come back, and then lepas tu letak sharing dekat Padlet, sharing dekat Mentimeter, sharing dekat chat, or maybe they can just present their idea, something like that. So that is what we call as informal cooperative learning pattern. So there is a systematic way of doing it rather than macam kita just what is the answer? Kita panggil Manraj, what's the answer just now, for example? And then kita tak pernah bagi peluang kepada the students actually to sit and discuss with each other. Okay, so that's how we conduct informal cooperative learning pattern. Okay, this is actually informal cooperative learning. Another approach that we could use is actually what we call as cooperative learning. Okay, cooperative learning ni is something that it is much more preparation needed. Okay, because cooperative learning ni daripada awal of the semester, since early of the semester, we have to start assign the students into group of 3 to 4 students per group, 4 to 5, cannot beyond more than 5. If you go to 6, then basically the students, some of the students will just peer write they will write each other. Okay, they will not actually doing their work, then just write each other. So cooperative learning is not only about project-based learning, but cooperative learning is the way how the students can actually be together as a team, okay, in a team, and whenever that you give a problem to them, they can go back to their own team and try to solve the problem together. Even problem tu macam simple problem yang kita letak dalam just need 30 minutes punya activity, something like that in the class. So that is what we call as cooperative learning ni, dia kena ada 5 principles that they need to fulfill. The first one is positive interdependence. Maksudnya kalau kita bagi certain task pada students, it cannot be solved only by one student, which means that the students need to be dependent on each other in order for them to solve the problem. Okay, that is number one. The second one is we must have individual accountability. Okay, which means that each of the students tu ada dia punya peranan masing-masing in order for them to solve the problem given to them. Okay. The third one is what we call as face-to-face interaction. So it is not simply divide and compile activities. Okay, it is somehow we need to check their progress. For example, right now the practice in Unimap in my program, okay, we have this what we call as integrated project. Integrated project ni daripada minggu pertama, second week lagi, students has already been given a topic. Okay, a topic that they need to actually figure out and solve it, and involve 3 subjects that is actually connecting together. Okay, so the students need later when it comes to week 14 and 15, they will be able to they will need to submit a report, but along the way they have certain milestone lah they have to fulfill. And dalam milestone tu kita ada face-to-face interaction lah among the students and the lecturer, among the students most of the time lah, frequently. So dia tak adalah macam towards the end baru student nak kena submit everything. Padahal along the way the student have certain milestone that need to complete. Sebab apa yang berlaku most of the time kalau kita tak check the student punya progress, if let's say we give a project to them in week 2, week 3, and we ask them to submit in week 14 and we didn't check the progress, so what will happen? Dia akan buat masa bila? Masa week 13. Ataupun week 13 tu kira bagus dah lah, tak pun dia buat malam sebelum submit. Okay, tak tidur malam tu lah dia kacau kita pukul 2 pagi, pukul 3 pagi hantar text minta clarification on certain thing, padahal benda tu dah boleh tanya lama dah kan. Okay, so this is the thing that we should do when we are doing cooperative learning. The fourth one is actually appropriate interpersonal skills. What does it mean by appropriate interpersonal skills is whenever that we give a cooperative learning activities, the students be able to develop important skills such as negotiation skill, communication skills, oral presentation skills. So these are the skills that will be used in order for them to solve the activities. And finally, there will be regular group function assessment. This is where actually the students need to do peer rating. So we need to peer rate the students from time to time. Okay, maksudnya students tu kena rate each other, bagi feedback towards each other. So this is what we call as regular group function assessment. So it's when we fulfill all of these principles, then in terms of putting our students as a team, will be very beneficial for them lah. Okay. So once we have activated the activities inside the class, this is where actually we provide formative assessment, such as open book quizzes or open book tests. And this is where actually we can provide immediate feedback. Kalau contohnya formative assessment, kita boleh give feedback direct pada students. Okay. And we can prepare the students for open book written assessment. And finally, what we can do as well is actually asking the student to do reflection. Okay. So the reflection too, for example, I can share with you some of the things that I have done earlier. Let me check. Okay. So whenever that we give some kind of activity for our student, so we can ask the students to write down their reflection. So the reflection, for example, like this is what I ask my students to do. I need them to write down what happened, what we're thinking and you're feeling, what was good, what was bad. Can they analyze something and then what conclusion? And then if let's say it comes back again, what they should do. So the students, most of the time I ask them, whenever that they were given certain kind of assessment, they make this kind of reflection. For example, like this test 1 bagi dekat diorang, one of the students said, my feeling after do the test is I feel a little bit sad and bad because I do not really understand the concept before anything else. This test is really testing my knowledge, my thinking skill and my ability to understand this subject and relate it in my life. This test made me realize that everything happen in life can relate with thermodynamic. This test also opened my eyes that I have a live to learn and apply in my entire life. So these are some lesson learned that the students can get, kan? Instead of macam kita just bagi test, lepas tu kita tak bagi feedback kepada student, for example. So reflection is something that the students can start to see back, okay, what I have done and how I can do better in the future. Okay, so that is why we actually sometimes ask the student to put reflection and in feedback. Okay, so that they can do better lah for the next time. And so if we want to actually conduct the assessment, so first we have to define the outcome, create activities, decide the scaffolding or guidance needed, and lepas tu kita try it out and make revision. Okay, one of the important guideline that I always hold on to is actually whenever that I give some kind of problem to my students or assignments to my students, if let's say that particular assignment I can solve within 1 hour, usually we multiply by 3 so that will be the sufficient hours for the student to solve that particular problem. Okay, so kalau kita boleh buat dalam masa 2 jam, so maksudnya student patutnya diberi masa up to 6 hours or 7 hours in order for them to do this. Okay, any question so far? Ada apa-apa soalan nak tanya saya? Other than Dr. Prof. Chia, nanti kita akan bawa ke rubrik after this, no problem. Tapi ada apa-apa soalan in between? Kalau ada soalan, you can ask me lah, right?
Tak ada, please proceed Dr. Tusley, tak ada dalam YouTube, tak ada dalam chat.
Okay, no problem. Alternative assessment is an assessment. Tadi kita sebut pasal authentic assessment, which is, it is also we call as alternative assessment. So it's something that I have made clearly daripada awal, kan, maksudnya whenever that we have a learning outcomes, and we want to make sure that the assessment is become authentic as much as possible. So alternative assessment is also known as authentic assessment. It can be easily aligned to the outcomes, and it allows the student to receive feedback for improvement most of the time by the end of the assignment or while doing the assignment. Kan? Maksudnya masa student tu kita beri assignment, masa itulah dia belajar. Would it be wonderful if we could do that? Maksudnya instead of dia hoping for us belajar only during the class punya session, but they also learn while doing the assignment, while doing the assessment. And it is beyond the traditional closed book written examinations. Okay, this is alternative assessment lah. and it measures what student do and cannot do, and the cons punya part ialah dia may require more time and effort. Itu saja, especially during this particular time, but sometimes we have to get to do it, because kalau tidak nanti banyaklah solution dia dekat chat kan, dekat chat, Course Hero dan sebagainya dekat situ. Okay, so that's why we come up with alternative assessment. Okay, when we talk about formative assessment, bila kita nak prepare ourselves so that we can prepare student to become HOTS, among other thing that we can do is actually we put up question. Macam contohnya along the way ni kan, kalau perasan saya buat Mentimeter. When I use my Mentimeter, I give question and I ask for you, macam contoh macam tadi lah, I think that's gonna be macam difficult kan, bila bagi soalan tu it requires some kind of thinking process to happen. So this is where actually we need to train our students to do thinking most of the time, do the thinking activities inside the class. So for example, I ask the student to get the feedback, I will need to revise more on this topic, share what you understand from this session, this lecture, what are your confusions towards it, so you can share the confusion. So these are the things that we can ask the students inside the class. Also, we can also ask the student to dissect some example. For example, like we give some kind of case study, and then that particular case study you need to be dissected. Even though that case study come up with the solution, we can always give our students to actually dissect that particular example with that solution. We can always ask them to summarize. We can always ask them what is the alternative to this. We can always ask the student what kind of mistake that you can spot from here. So these are the things that the students can do in order to make the thinking process got better. Okay, we have to figure out lah. Maksudnya instead of whenever that we are actually designing our class lecture, kita nak buat slide, bukan setakat buat slide, but we have to put extra time to think about, okay, what kind of activities that I could do inside my class so that I can engage with the students. So these are the things that we have to do. Okay, right, this is an example lah, recent test yang saya bagi dekat student. Ini kalau perasan siapa tengok K-drama, dia tahulah. Dr. Manraj, you watch K-drama tak, Dr. Manraj?
Tak sangat.
Yang lain-lain ada tak yang watch K-drama? Ada tak yang tengok Vincenzo? Okay, so this is actually okay, thank you Dr. Asni. Okay, tak tonton. Okay, this is actually a recent popular punya K-drama lah, Vincenzo. I give this as part of the test to the student actually. Okay, kalau siapa yang tengok ni dan tak pernah tengok K-drama, ini part spoiler dia lah, part towards the end the spoiler. Tapi most of the students I know they are well versed dengan dia, memang dia tengok pun, bila kita tanya memang dia tengok. Okay, so this is I relate the problem tu with thermodynamics. And memang kalau ikut soalan kat bawah ni is actually using appropriate assumption, some calculation, and by sketching a suitable PV diagram or TV diagram, what could possibly be wrong with the system. So it is a very open-ended. Jawapan dia akan pelbagai, tapi of course kita ada jawapan yang very specific, bukan spesifik, maksudnya jawapan yang tertentu yang kita accept. Kita tak naklah jawapan dia ke laut. Okay, but and at the same time, for example, the question I put up here, as an engineer, Vincenzo hires you to ensure the system work well. Using an appropriate PV or TV diagram, suggest some improvement that he could make to ensure he can still use the system, blah 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 blah. So from here, the students, kalau kita tengok what are the thinking process that happen from here. Kalau kita tengok belum taxonomy, first thing first is to recall. Maksudnya recall apa, kat mana nak cari information regarding this, that is the first thing. Second thing is to understand. Bila dia dah recall tu, dia understand ke tak that particular teori, fundamentals, PV diagram, dia faham ke tak? Yang ketiga, dia akan apply. This is where actually the application come in. Dia akan apply guna dalam do of this problem. Yang keempat, dia kena analyze the problem. So they have some kind of parameters, Dia kena redraw balik, dia kena do some diagramnya, sketching, and then try to do some kind of analysis. Lepas tu barulah dia dapat come out dengan what evaluation, what could be possibly be wrong with the system. So dia dah masuk level 5. So if you look at here, question yang number 2A, that is already level 5, C5. Bila masuk kat sini, dia dah masuk suggestion with provide necessary calculation. So dia dah go towards level 6, which is designing. Okay? And the students never come across this kind of problem before. They just do some kind of calculation, some kind of exercise along the way. Tapi, of course, they have been triggered from time to time. Kita bagi aktiviti yang supaya dapat menjentik HOTS dia, high order thinking skills dia. So, those are the things that we could do as part of our this is an example lah of open-ended test or quiz yang kita boleh bagi pada students. Okay. So if let's say we want to evaluate this, kita ada rubrik. Contohnya macam based on question part A tadi, kita ada kriteria kita sendiri and we have our weightage that we want, and we could spell out, for example, like if let's say students got rating 5, sebab apa dia dapat rating 5? Contohnya students be able to come up with appropriate assumption. Ataupun kalau student tu fail to state assumptions, dia dapat rating yang rendah lah. Kalau student tu state some assumption tapi lack of judgement kenapa dia assume macam tu, dia mungkin dapat rating 3, tengah-tengah je contohnya. So students be able to calculate some parameters. Then they gather all information, they perform calculation. Tapi students gather the parameters tapi tak boleh nak, dia dapat information tapi dia calculate tapi tak boleh nak relate, tak boleh nak connect contohnya. So mungkin dapat tengah-tengah. Okay. Ataupun if let's say the students later ability dia to able to point how the system, the current system went wrong. So when they sketch and then they be able to relate, okay, this is where actually they can point out sebenarnya, okay, kenapa sistem ni salah, kat mana salah. And of course, bila masuk kat rating 3, students only be able to sketch tapi tak boleh dapat bagi reasoning, yang strong reasoning. So dapat markah tengah-tengah. Okay, so that how does we develop specific rubric? As pointed out by Prof. Chia just now, we need to develop specialized rubric for every assignments that we do. Kita tak ada generic rubric yang kita boleh pakai, but when we need to use different kind we need to develop our own rubric and validated for it. Okay. This is also another example lah. Contohnya macam soalan berkaitan dengan material and energy balance, subject related to chemical engineering problem. Okay. Tapi kalau kita tengok soalan yang saya bagi kat sini, a volcano of a diameter of a football field was observed to become active and estimated to erupt for at least in a month and will be affecting a nearby village. As the engineers and chemists who are expert in material balance, you and your team members are planning to solve this issue without having to move the villages. Share your thoughts in solving this. Please share some calculations made, if any. So, this is some kind of formative assessment activities that you can give. Maksudnya, tak bagi 15 markah ni tak ada masalah. Tapi it's just an activity that you can do inside the class. So, students were given about 3 hours actually to solve this. They need to relate back to the theories. Sebab dia dalam subjek, dalam slide dia tak ada pun pasal volcano kan. Tapi they need to resolve something. They need to actually, based on the theory calculation, ada pakai bypass ke, dia nak pakai recycle ke macam mana, they need to come up with some kind of solution. So this is what we call as open-ended kind of assessment. The answer could be many, but then it has to be related to the theories and fundamentals being taught to them. Okay. Tak apalah, saya skip dulu sebab timing pun 11.48 lah, kat ke 12. Okay. What actually makes a good rubric? Can I ask you? Maybe you can respond to me lah. Kalau you can answer me. What makes a good rubric? You can go back to menti.com and use the same code and just respond to me. What do you feel that, what makes a good rubric? Kan bila kita nak develop rubric ni, apa yang information penting whenever that we want to make a good rubric? Anyone can share? Dekat menti.com. Give some thoughts about it. What makes a good rubric? And if anyone ask me kenapa saya guna Mentimeter ni, saya tahu kalau student kita, even we ourselves pun sometimes kita rasa kita tak terbiasa actually kita tak terbiasa untuk jawab, kita takut sebenarnya untuk buat salah. So that's why most of the time kita segan nak jawab dekat bahagian chat, and our students also have the same thing. So whenever that I use this menti.com, it's very anonymous. And this if you respect kepada prinsipal saya, iaitu if you recall balik pasal HPL, how people learn framework, one of it is community centered, right? One of it is community centered. Students need to feel safe in order for them to learn. Okay, so if they feel safe to learn, they will continue to learn. So macam kat sini bila saya provide anonymous punya platform, so the students will feel, for example you as a student, you feel safe to say something, kan? Dia cakap apa kat kita pun kita tahu, kita boleh dapat. So that's why most of the time I use Mentimeter, so that everybody, kita tahu. Macam contohnya siapa yang tulis ni pun saya tak tahu siapa, but then we still get some feedback from here. Okay, some of the example answer that I can get here, for example, what makes a good rubric? We need to have a specific criteria, have a clear items that is being assessed, cover the expected outcome. It need to be concise, easy for evaluator to assess. A good rubric is both an instructional tool and assessment tool. Okay, provide detailed parameters needed, reflect the learning outcome. Kita kena ada criteria, level of performance, gradation of quality, reliability, validity. Okay, clear and realistic description for each level, and we need to be objective on that. Okay, wonderful. So here, what makes a good rubric? Okay, some of the thoughts from, you can refer to these references kat bawah nanti. It must possess a specific list of criteria. So student know exactly what the teacher is expecting. Bila kita develop rubric ni, bila kita bagi assignment, it would be very good if let's say we always share the rubric with the student, so the students know what to expect from here. So what knowledge and skills is an assignment designed to assess, what observable criteria, macam mana kita nak divide criteria tu. Okay, so these are very important thing. One of the thing is criteria lah. Second one is the gradation. Maksudnya bila kita bagi rubrik, there should be a gradation of quality base. Again, rubrik ni should measure the performance level. Okay, should measure the performance level, not the academic ability. It is the performance of the student to be able to solve the task given. So that is about how do you give gradation. Okay, and the rubric describe exactly what makes an assignment quality. Maksudnya dia akan ada description kat situ. Kalau description pun tak clear, how do you describe from one level to another level? So that is not a good rubric. Another important part is reliability. Okay, a good rubric should be able to be used by various teachers. So contohnya, kalau kita ada satu rubric, tapi seorang bagi 90 markah, seorang bagi 70 markah, ataupun bagi 60 markah, okay, so it is not reliable. So that rubric need to be revisited balik, because it is not reliable. Okay, so if let's say we have a good rubric, markah dia tak akan lari banyak sangat if let's say different teachers are using it. Okay? And another important thing is what we call as validity. A rubric should possess validity, so it should be valid. Sometimes we also need to double check. Kalau contohnya bila kita develop rubric tu, ada someone who be able to double check on what we are doing and verify on it. Okay, kita dapat vet through from it. That's also very good lah kalau kita ada rubric. And the final part is actually whenever that we want to give the final assessment, so it should be open-ended with rubric prepared. So we should design questions based on intended learning outcome and teaching and learning activities. So we make the rubric and we brief the students lah, provide necessary form and etc. So this is an example of extended assignment. Masa ni saya dekat UTP, tahun lepas that we give an assignment. The students have 24 hours in order for them to solve this assignment. and it's quite open-ended. It's open-ended, and then it gives some students some, what do you call that? They need to, of course, you can expect them to discuss among themselves. Tapi it is not that an easy kind of solution for them to solve this. So they need to really go through information, gather. They akan go through all the process of thinking tu dalam masa they are trying to solve this particular problem. Yang bagusnya about open-ended assessment ni, open-ended kan, student melainkan student tu memang betul-betul tak tahu, student tu memang they have no idea about the topic masa tak masuk kelas dan sebagainya, memang dia tak boleh nak jawab langsung. Tapi for those student who still put an attempt for it, there are still marks for them, right? Because bila kita bagi markah kepada mereka pun, actually if you remember about solo taxonomy just now tu tadi, awal-awal pagi tadi saya share about solo taxonomy kan. So we are measuring the students based on how deep their understanding are. So supposedly, when we give open-ended assessment, those students with deeper understanding should get better marks or better grades compared to those who have shallow understanding. Betul tak? Kan? Setuju tak dengan saya that those students who have a deeper understanding about this particular topic, about this particular courses for example, should have a better grade compared dengan students yang ada shallow understanding. But what happened in the past bila kita buat all this close-ended exam dan sebagainya, ataupun MCQ ke contohnya, student yang hentam-hentam dapat markah betul banyak pun still, padahal sebenarnya in actual dia tak pandai pun, tapi because dia pandai hentam ataupun dia pandai spot soalan. Okay, this is what happened in the past. So that's why if you want to go closer to very authentic and very natural way of assessing the students, open-ended assessment is the way forward, so that we can really appreciate the student who have actually going to the level of deeper understanding compare dengan students yang macam hafal-hafal, okay, menghafal je and then dia boleh jawab, menghafal je boleh jawab. That is not the quality of the student that we want. The student that we want is those who have really deep thinking skills and a deep learner themselves. Okay, so that is how assessment ni dia dapat drive, assessment ni dapat drive the student towards how they should learn. So if we keep continuing doing this kind of open-ended assessment, it will drive the students towards becoming a better thinker and better learner lah. Okay, so that's what we want by doing this kind of open-ended assessment. Okay. Making your students a teacher via flipped assessment. So this is the next section that I'll be sharing with you about one of the innovation that we have made in the past. The question is, what do you think it means by flipped assessment? Is actually where the students think like us and student develop exam question with complete solution. Ataupun bukan exam question, maksudnya instruction tu students develop with complete solution. Contohnya macam tadilah, bila saya bagi task kan, to come out to propose the best communication method and so on, blah blah blah. So and then come up with the solution. I don't ask you to come up with solution kan, I just ask you come up with the instruction. Tapi if let's say imagine you give some kind of task that you are doing right now. If you are kita sebagai lecturer, sebagai educator, whenever that we give some kind of task, kita dah ada some kind of, why we give that particular task, because we know the answer, right? We know what is our expectation. How about give that particular task to the student, so that the student be in our shoes, but then on top of that they come up with the solution. So this is the idea of having what we call as flipped assessment tadi. Okay, so flipped assessment ni, one of the role of the students are given the role as faculty members to set up final exam questions for specific learning outcome. Okay, so here we give the requirement of the assignment lah. Maksudnya kita nak student to develop question, instruction tu must be of 70 to 80% must be of HOTS level. Students kena prepare complete solution. That is very important. Because kita ni pun bila kita nak come out dengan soalan kan, dengan instruction whatsoever, mesti kita akan go through dulu dengan textbook and read and understand the whole chapter first kan. So similarly, we want to replicate the experience to the student. We want the student to make sure that whenever they want to come up with the best instruction, they need to go through first the material, the learning material. They need to go and read first and complete it. And of course, this task cannot be done within 1 hour, 2 days, 1 day. It cannot be done like that. Usually, I always give this task to the students about 2 weeks in order for them to prepare this kind of question. Okay? And of course, some of the things that I assess them, for example, like in terms of their high order thinking skills, their originality, solution, format, and language, and so on lah. Okay? So for example, like this is one of the tasks that I've given to my students ni 2016 lagi 5 years ago. The students need to develop assignment, develop a close-ended. Maksudnya dia punya task is to develop close-ended exam. Tapi this is of course very open-ended assessment kan for them, and they need, of course, I give them certain challenge. I said I don't want first order, I want a second order, which is a bit difficult for them. And then I said this is the some other task. So I teach them also belum taxonomy tu macam mana and use the correct guide word and so on. And they have to submit their solution and pass through Turnitin so that I can actually check in terms of their originality and so on. So some of the students they come up with a good analogy for that lah, and then they show their understanding, level of understanding and complete solution towards what they have done. So this is really memang when I really observe from my practices ni, memang I be able to see which particular student who are surface level surface learner, which particular students who are very deep learner. Memang ada difference. Memang kita nampak significant difference in this. I also tested them not only to final year student ke something like that. First year student lagi I dah buat. For me, in my case, HOTS ni kita tak perlu tunggu level student reach certain level baru kita nak develop HOTS punya level. HOTS ni even daripada tadika pun sebenarnya kita dah boleh develop HOTS, high order thinking skill. So for me, bila daripada budak-budak masuk first year student dah masuk first year lagi, saya dah start bagi HOTS assessment lah, among which this kind of assignment lah, flip assessment ni. Okay. And the students agree lah, they have flexible time. This is one of the assignment that I give during the MCO, first MCO ni. So some of the students they solve it at the city, some of it at the university, some of them dekat small town or village. Okay, ada yang duduk dekat suburban areas. But many of them tak suka lah sangat in term of ni, neutral in term of I like the idea of creating an exam question, but they said that it allow them to revise the whole chapter tested. Memang it's somehow challenging, but it actually makes them be able to go through to the material deeper lah. Okay, and some of them said they have mastered the tested topic, so they agree on that, and it allow them to reach their higher order thinking skills. The only problem that they feel that they are lacking is actually they feel they are lacking of creativity. Dia tak cukup rasa kreatif untuk develop some kind of question. Majority of them say it's just right, but some of them also say it's very difficult in order for them to develop the question. These are some reflections that they have highlighted. For example, that they had shared with me about they like the idea of being creative in designing the question. The topics become more approachable and interesting. And then I think this kind of assessment is good to increase mastery on a specific topic. Okay, this is what they comment on it. And then they say this is I call it as take home test. It have flexible time and then they don't rush in order for them to complete this. And then another one is actually take home test can be considered as a good idea for students to develop their creativity and master a chapter. Okay, student will not be limited to one answer like in the normal test, but they can also widen their knowledge. This is also one of the students say it's an interesting method of learning something. Okay. And then one of the students ni dia cakap dia kata dia tak kreatif lah. Okay. Sebab dia kadang-kadang dia cari kat Google, dia jumpa tengok-tengok orang lain dah buat something like that, dia afraid hilang markah sebab tu. So
Dr. Tusley, I have a
yeah.
question. So
Yes.
how would you address the creativity aspect in your when you reflect and to do the future home test ni? How would you address the issues with the creativity?
Oh, okay. Creativity ni it means that they going beyond the norms lah. Maksudnya kalau if let's say if let's say right now they feel that sorry Dr. Manraj, the question is actually now the student complain about they are not creative.
Yes.
So
So how are we going to address
how are we
this
going to address the
students'
creativity?
concern
Okay.
in the next assessment? In maybe in the same cohort ke different cohort tak apa.
Yeah. So for me, I think it is always that we need to, because creativity ni dia memang kalau if you refer to Bloom Taxonomy pun it is actually at the highest level. And it is actually at level create tadi kan. Kat situ baru dapat creativity. Sebab all this while student just follow the template and try to solve the problem. And whenever that we give assignment to them, they just doing it. Tapi in order for us to make sure that the student reach the creativity level, we need to bring them to the highest level dalam Bloom Taxonomy tu baru dia akan sampai. And of course, it takes time. What we have to do is actually regularly do activities that actually generate dia punya creativity. And in the sense of and of course becoming creative ni it takes time lah. So for me, I would say that I would regularly, I do not repeat. The student will expect from me that every time they do something with me, they will expect it only once. There will be no repeating activities of the same thing. Okay, so the student can start to figure out, okay, how actually they could become more creative in solving it. We can also partly we can give some kind of scaffolding for the students lah. Scaffolding ni kita bagi example. Kita bagi example and we would say that try to find example which is a bit deviate from this lah. So at least students have some kind of sense what they could do. And it's not something yang easy lah. Okay, it's not something yang easy, but we have to try lah for that. Okay. Alright, Dr. Manraj, we have a quiz, Dr. Manraj.
Yes.
we have a quiz right now, and I just want to test what kind of understanding towards extent that we have understood. Okay, so I hope everybody ready. Let me bring you back to the quiz. Okay, so you can join from the menti.com. Use the same code 68267334. So let's join the quiz. Kita ada participant kat sini around 35. So if let's say I got about 20, then we can start. Ataupun maybe 15 to 20. Okay, we have 17. Ada lagi nak join? Ada lagi nak join quiz? Okay. Can we start now? Right? Okay, let's have answer fast to get more points here. In solo taxonomy, if I can obviously relate this topic with what I learned last week, then I am at which particular level? Is it unistructural level, multistructural, relational, ataupun at the standard abstract level? Which one? Okay. Ramai yang mendengar ni bagus. Okay. It is actually at relational level. Sebab kalau unistructural or multistructural is a surface understanding. Tapi once you start be able to relate with the topic yang dia belajar last week within the courses, so it is at relational level. So we move to the next question. Tapi sebelum tu kita tengok siapa yang leading. Siapa yang cepat dia dapat markah banyak. Sun Jong Ki. Okay, so Vincenzo is the fastest for now. Dia duduk dekat depan sekali. The next question. Question number 2 out of 5. In HPL, students and instructor as part of learning community that support each other to learn and attain high standard is considered what? Which particular lens? Knowledge-centered, learner-centered, community-centered or assessment-centered? Jawapan dah ada situ dah. Jawab je. Time's up. So, ada juga jawab salah. Supposed to be community-centered. It's not assessment or it is not knowledge-centered. It is community-centered. Right? So, when the students are part of the learning community, then they feel safe to learn, then they wanted to learn. That's why sebenarnya teori yang mengatakan bahawa kita when you force the students to learn, you can bring the horse to the water, ataupun you can bring water to the horse, but you cannot actually force the horse. Okay, we cannot force the horse to drink the water. Okay, next question. Okay tak, kita tengok leaderboard dulu. Terlepas tadi tengok siapa yang scoring. Okay. Dr. AB. The fastest and score 1707. Avatar dia ikan. Okay. Kita tengok soalan yang seterusnya. 3 out of 5. Question 3 out of 5. The followings may be needed for developing problem-solving tasks, except, so if you recall the problem-solving versus exercise solving just now, problem has to be ill-defined, there may be more than one valid approach, assumptions need to be specified, it can be combination of many topics and many subjects. Okay, assumptions need to be specified tu yang betul. Maksudnya bila kita bagi soalan kat student, bagi dalam bentuk problem, okay, kita kena bagi okay, kita kena bagi kita tak perlu bagi assumptions. Maksudnya let the students do the assumption on their own. And the problem memang kena be ill-defined, okay? And it can be more than one valid approach and it can be a combination of many topics and subjects. Siapa yang leading sekarang? AZ. Okay, AZ, Alicia and Z. Ini top 3 sekarang. The next question, question number 4 out of 5. Why do we need to give open-ended formative assessments for our student prior to the final open-ended assessment? So we can give feedback what is right and what is wrong. or is it a scaffold system for the students to be ready to fill up our empty slot, or so the student do not fall asleep during online class? Okay. Okay, kita kena ingat bahawa whenever that we give this formative assessment, it is about scaffolding. Okay, scaffold down so that they are ready. So that they are ready for the finals, so they are ready for a summative assessment. So that's why kita bagi formative assessment tadi, so that kita boleh bagi feedback kepada mereka. Yang ni betul juga, tapi it is not about what is right and what is wrong only, but what is actually how they can improve themselves better. So yang lebih accurate, they will be answered as a scaffold lah. Okay. So kita tengok siapa yang ni. Oh, Dr. Alicia. Dr. Alicia leading sekarang ni followed by Azzy, followed by balik Dr. AB. Okay. Kita tengok pula soalan yang terakhir. Why do we flip our assessment? Why do we flip our assessment? So our job will be easier to get bank question for closed book exam. So our students are able to achieve the HOTS needed. So our student can have integrity in attempting the assessment. Help us to classify weak and good student. Okay, so the answer is actually so that our students are able to achieve the HOTS needed. Okay, so that is one of the things that we could do lah. So I hope that kita punya aktiviti ataupun idea-idea yang saya kongsikan ni dapat bagi idea lah how actually we can develop some kind of HOTS assessment for our students. Let's see the final ni. So siapa yang berada di atas? Tahniah kepada Dr. Alicia. Betul. Okey. Kena bagi jap. Saya bagi appreciation sikit. Tahniah Dr. Alicia. Okey. Dr. Alicia nak hadiah ke? Dr. Alicia nak hadiah, nanti boleh je. Boleh bagi kat saya alamat, nanti saya postkan hadiah. Okay. Alright. Boleh bagi alamat bagi email saya nanti, tazli@unimap.edu.my. Bagi alamat, nanti saya postkan hadiah. Alright. So the last part of it, sebelum saya berakhir, let me actually bring you back to another. Okay. The last part about becoming an empathetic educator lah. Ni satu benda challenge yang kita hadapi dalam masa COVID-19 ni, when we have to be at home. Kita kena buat learning from home, teaching from home. Whenever that we do the assessment, kita kena fikirkan dulu ada beberapa benda yang kita kena discover. First of all is actually the purpose of the assessment. Yang kedua ialah what to assess. Yang ketiga, how to assess that, who will do the assessment, and suitability of the assessment. Okay. Jadi dalam masa emergency remote teaching, which is currently we are still actually having this, walaupun this is a new norm, for me it is not really a new norm, melainkan kita dapat solve all the issues yang berkaitan dengan student kita. Sebab student kita right now, we are living in a VUCA, okay, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, okay, a lot of uncertainty. And therefore, during this particular period, we need to be a bit considerate lah dalam kita memberikan assignments kepada student, assessment kepada students. So, it matters. Contohnya kan, kalau kita bagi assignments, kita kena measure antara impact versus frequency. Okay? So, berbanding dengan frequency of assignment kita bagi kerat-kerat berbanding dengan the impact of the assignments that we give to the students. I think the impact is very important. Especially kalau kita nak address learning outcome. Okay, at least satu learning outcome dapat satu assignments yang dapat memberikan impact kepada mereka, that is sufficient. And each assignment's duration need to be considerately decided. Maksudnya bila kita nak bagi assignment kat student, jangan kita bagi assignment yang bagi hari ni esok nak dan sebagainya. Sebab we have to realise that the students when they are at home, they are facing other things as well. They are actually at different time space zone dengan kita dah lain. Okay, they are help at home, they have to also help at home. So kita tak boleh nak expect dia orang to fully commit and be in the learning process too for 24 hours. And the third one is avoid unplanned assessment at all costs. So try to avoid assessment yang kita bagi macam hari ni tiba-tiba nak buat pop quiz dan sebagainya kan. So try to avoid those at all costs lah. And most importantly as well, talk to the colleagues who teach the same student so that the assignments given do not overlap. Maksudnya kat sini dari segi duration, time, due date apa semua, kadang-kadang kita boleh plan. Kita boleh plan and we allow our student to live in term of kata apa, better life lah kan. Bayangkan dia duduk kat rumah dengan assignment yang banyak sekaligus bertimbun. So we can actually space out supaya student kita ni taklah rasa macam terlalu what do you call that? Feel overburdened ataupun overwhelmed with the assignments given. And consider giving a doable online integrated project. Okay, so please do give a doable online integrated project. Contohnya macam they can combine antara subjek tertentu, they can do integrated project. That will be a good way forward. Monitor the student progress when giving group project weekly so that we can check on the students' progress. As I mentioned earlier, face-to-face interaction is very important walaupun online. And we provide more scaffolding than usual. So maksudnya kita kena bagi support pada students, more scaffolding. Sebab kita kena imagine that the students ni, ada setengah students, in order for them to achieve the learning outcome, they can just need 3 to 4 steps. Ada setengah student yang memerlukan lebih kurang dalam 10 ke 15 anak tangga, barulah dia dapat ke learning outcome yang kita nak. So we need to know which particular students need more scaffold and we can provide the help for them. Okay, so I would like actually, if possible, for you to share your reflection of today's session. So kalau boleh tulis dekat menti.com 682674. What actually that you learn from today's session? Ada benda baru tak that you rasa macam okay, this is something aha moment for me, this is something new, there is something that I feel that I can improve further from my practices ke, ataupun this is something that I have heard forever and doesn't work ke, something like that. So please do share with me and write down what do you think about the session. Okay, please do share your reflection. Okay, please write down. Okay, so it is an eye-opening session and you find it useful because as a new lecturer, okay, reflect what you did so far and more improvement have to be made. Okay, it is useful, mind-blowing session. Okay, HOTS assessment is a well-designed experience and you need scaffolding. This is the best session I've attended by far. Wonderful share. I learned so much more. Okay, this session remind me how I'm doing during my student days. Very useful. Be empathetic when giving HOTS assessment. Great speaker, great information, increase my knowledge and better application. The HOTS assessment is important, but I think the system give the weightage to HOTS not enough. Yes, agree. It's a new scaffolding to my teaching and learning. I love solar taxonomy. So you found this as an interactive session. Okay, easier said than done, but could be improved with time. Okay, thanks for your sharing. I learned new lesson from you. Thanks for your patience. No problem. Thank you very much for being here. and listening to my sharing for the past 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Okay, Dr. Yu, sorry, I have one question before the session end. We have courses with psychomotor skill as course learning outcome. How to assess courses with psychomotor skill using online teaching and learning? Okay, to be honest, Dr. Yu, I feel that psychomotor, that is the lacking part dalam online teaching and learning. There are things that could not be done with online teaching and learning, and it has to be done practically. So that particular psychomotor skill, it has to be done by through observation. Melainkan you are doing some kind of, for example, like the student need to do practice something and they record a video ataupun they do the live sharing session with you. You be able to see they practicing the skill. That is possible. Otherwise, if let's say they have to use specialized equipment, specialized apparatus that they need to do the hands-on, only then they have to do hands-on, then the observation to be made. Okay. Thank you very much. What I have learned is designing HOT assessment is started from the way we teach students. I learned a lot from this session. I will apply what I learned today. And thank you very much. Thank you to all. Okay. So if let's say you have any question, you can pop up the question later. Some of the
Dr. Tusley, I have a question.
yes,
As you
sure,
said
sure.
that when we want to conduct HOTS assessment, right, it
Mhm.
should be well designed before even the semester started. When we want to design our course throughout the 14 weeks of teaching and learning, that would be the ideal case of HOTS assessment, right? Because then we have to know where we want to give, what scaffolding is needed, and what support needs to be given. My question is, what happens if like now without prior throughout the whole week tak buat sangat, throughout the whole 13 weeks kita tak buat sangat HOTS or we touch very little, and then we want to do HOTS assessment as a summative
And final exam lah, summative
final
assessment.
exam. What is your take on that?
I think even before that, we should try our best to provide some kind of scaffolding lah before we provide the final punya assessment, because I think it is not fair for the students lah. It is not fair for the students. Tak buat apa-apa, bagi lecture kosong je, and then suddenly dapat hot assessment towards the end. I think it's not fair for them. So whatever it is, we try our best. Kalau kita boleh scaffold diorang, at least bagi diorang a taste of it. Practice something, kan? Masa dalam 13 weeks, week 14, we still can give some kind of practices so that they are actually clear about what is the expectation towards the end. But maybe next semester we can start daripada awal lah. That's very important lah. The way how we put up question. Macam tadi kan, I don't do this engagement saja-saja tau. I do this engagement because I know that I need to provide some kind of thinking time for all of you. So bila sometimes when I ask question dalam Mentimeter ke contohnya, it triggers you think, right? So these are the things that you can repeat, that kind of experience with your students. And then sometimes when we do the breakout activities, the students need to be more participative and discuss. So these are the things that where we scaffold our students. As pointed out Dr. Manraj, so perhaps before the real exam, maybe we can do some kind of activities just to strengthen that and put expectation for the students lah. Nanti dapat result meredum bila bagi hot.
Yeah, betul.
Okay, so I think that's all, Dr. Manraj. Over to you. I've done my part. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Tusley. Pergilah minum air dulu. Is there any other questions? Feel free. We got a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's none, I guess you can come and get in touch with me or even Dr. Tusley if you need any more information regarding HOTS. He shared all his where he can be reached. On behalf of the Deputy Dean of Health Sciences in the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, Dr. Tusley, we would like to convey our utmost gratitude for your time given. And I would like to say, Dr. Tusley is so approachable. Even last minute, within a few weeks, he was kind enough to agree to share the session with you. So thank you very much.
No problem.
And yes, on behalf of the Deputy Dean as well, the office, we like to, how to say, extend our hand so that we can collaborate with UNIMAP and especially with you as well for further improving the teaching and learning landscape in Malaysia, like in higher education. So thank you very much, Dr. Tusley, and also to all the participants. Thank you very much for your time spent. It's 4 hours of your time. So thank you very much. And I hope that this session will be a very fruitful session. And before I end, I'd just like to remind you guys all that the following session will be on the 17th of June, which will be done by Dr. Salah from Engineering Faculty as well, UPM, that talks about how do you create open-ended examination questions. So this will be a nice follow-up from Dr. Tusley's talk as well. So thank you very much. You have a pleasant afternoon. And Dr. Tusley, thank you very, very, very much from all of us. Yep.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much, TD SK Office punya team juga ya.